can get rolling. I'll leave this open just in case. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, I got AirPods in, that's my thing. I've done an event. I feel like it's so rude if you're talking to having a meeting with somebody and you have AirPods in. It's kind of like, I just forget that I have them in. How's it going? All right. Today, for some reason, like I always wear these shirts, but today for some reason I've had people just, other businesses here that know me or just whatever asking me something I never get asked, which was like, where do you get tattoos, right? And I was like, why would somebody be asking me this today of all days, right? I wear long sleeves, so most people don't. I mean, you could see if we're ever talking, but that I'm sleeved out. But it dawned on me, my son put temporary tattoos on my hands, and I guess if you're covered in tattoos and you have a fake tattoo somewhere, no one thinks it's a fake tattoo. They just think you. Apparently, some people think that I've not been able to talk to, that I'm now tattooing my hands, but no, they're fake tattoos. My son has them on, and you knew they were fake tattoos when you saw it. So, but apparently, if you ever do have tattoos and you decide to get them, and you get a fake tattoo, everyone just assumes the fake tattoo is a real tattoo, because why would you get fake tattoos if you have tattoos? So, I don't know. Just a little aside. We're going to get started. We got a lot more people coming. Today's presentation starts. Well, now we're in our beginner hour for anybody that is new or hasn't been here for a while. Welcome back. Thank you for coming. And the presentation, we're bringing in Chris McCabe, who's already in Miami, so that's a good sign that the speaker is here. And I assume he'll be getting here a little bit before 2. And from 2 to 3:30, we're going to, by the way, Andres, can you watch the stream? Have it open, or anybody else that wants to just have it open, that would be nice, because Andres is ADHD to the max. And that way, if anybody does have a question or they're saying that the audio sucks or something, I have an idea that that's happening. But anybody that, what was I going to say? So yeah, we're going to do this beginner hour. Chris is in town, and if the topic is going to be about, whenever I bring this kind of topic, I'll throw this around, by the way, if you have any questions. You don't have to talk into it, but if it's near you, people on the stream can hear the questions you're asking, which from what I hear sometimes is a lot more interesting than what I have to say. Whenever I have one of these topics that come in with Chris, who's a sponsor, by the way, Ecom Chris, that have to do with helping you get out of like account suspensions and the trouble that sometimes brews up with Amazon, I feel like it's very easy to think, oh my God, there's so many problems on Amazon, is it even worth doing? So I feel the need almost to go on the defense of Amazon a little bit. I think it is a better time than ever to sell on Amazon, in my opinion. However, like any platform, the things happen, and the bigger a company gets, the bigger the likelihood is that you get caught up in some bot or some like one-size-fits-all new rule and proving your way out of it and not getting these template responses. What's up, Ro? Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, proving your way out of it. How's it going? And not getting these templatized responses from Amazon, being like, hey, I'm a freaking business here and my livelihood's kind of at stake. It can be very challenging. Also, if you're a new seller and say you're doing like the arbitrage model, and you go to sell something and you don't have a history, like you hear everybody talking about them making money, but you haven't really been able to taste a lot of that yourself, and then you get this suspension, and you come here and somebody's like, oh no, this person can fix it, and they're like, they want $3K. Like, I've only made $800. Like, it becomes hard to wrap your head around. Unfortunately, you get a business who's in despair and they've got their money trapped or their account's down and all their dreams are shattered. They're also in kind of a desperate spot. So what's happened is a lot of companies have popped up all over the place, promising you these services to help bail you out for thousands of dollars, and in reality, they're not. So I'm not saying none of them are, but Chris is like the 5-star creme de la creme when it comes to that. That's why, we say no to a lot more sponsors than we say yes. By the way, one of our amazing sponsors had come in today from C Group Freight, which you're going to see up here and probably hear us touch on throughout the day. We say no to a lot more people, so we only want to work with the best. So the criteria for me on that is either I am working directly with you and I have firsthand experience that you are the best thing since peanut butter, or like somebody in my inner circle, or like a brother to me, like Alex says, has this firsthand experience and they can vouch for it and show like, hey, this is what's going on. The only other workaround to that, and I get pitched all the time, and it's like, so the person's like, this software will make people millions. And I'm like, great, give 3 free licenses to people in my group, let them test drive it for a couple months, and when they get these wins, then we could be sponsors, like we could do something. They don't respond. But, so like, Chris is one of those. I've lost track of how many people Chris has bailed out of issues, right? Like, real deal stuff. So like, the stuff he's gonna tell you, you may not like hearing it, but you can take it to the bank. And I'd rather hear something I don't want to hear up front and be able to make a decision, kind of you know what, or get off the pot and in your business. So Chris is going to do that from like 2 to 3:30. I'm pretty sure since he's in town, he's going to stay afterwards. We don't have another event after this one today. So at 3:30, we usually just hang out here and network, maybe grab some pizzas or something, and I'll bring in some more snacks, or you can order food in, whatever you want to do. But that's kind of the layout of what it looks like today. Since some of you haven't been here in a while or it's your first time, there's C Group Freight empanadas by the door, sugar-free, carb-free. I can't vouch for that, but like, we got snacks and stuff courtesy of our sponsors right there by the front door. Help yourself to them. You can get up while we're talking. You can get up now and go grab some. There's coffee, bathrooms at the back. I have a tendency to put the AC on really cold. So like if you're cold, unless it's Andres, which my business partner, again, I don't care if he's cold. I'm supposed to make him cold. But like if you're uncomfortable with that, just let me know and I can hit it up from the phone, all right? Finally, just some advice as we get into this beginner hour is if you don't know what question to ask, an amazing question is, I don't know what question to ask, and I can take it from there. This is the beginner hour. Don't worry about that. And the final one is, if you think it's something that you don't want to be too exposed on, just phrase it as something like you're asking for a friend of yours that you know is struggling with whatever. That's always a good go-to. The dumbest thing you can do, it's a beautiful freaking day outside in Miami and it's a Saturday. You could be doing a million things, but to just sit here and not ask a single question to advance what's going on in your business is the only dumb thing, I'm sorry, that is the only dumb thing that you could do, all right? Maybe not dumb, maybe you want to network, and no pressure, by the way. But like, just take advantage of it. It's free. There is no come to the back of the room for your 401k at the end to sell you a core. There's none of that, right? Like, it's just, I want to see you guys succeed. My hidden agenda is if you get a win from here, you're going to tell other people about this place to get a win. And some of them subscribe to our Wizards of Ecom Academy at $50 a month to get all of our classes. That's it. And the more people subscribe, the happier my wife is, and the happier my wife is, it just makes my life amazing. So like that's my evil hidden agenda, okay? A new thing we've done is we put our sponsors here up top. Hey, the whole tribe's coming today. For those watching on the stream, you're going to see a ticker on the bottom. Otherwise, we'd spend like 30 minutes now. We're blessed to have some amazing sponsors. Some of them we have banners on. I'm looking for the C Group Freight one, and I'm like, what? But since they are here, like I think it's pretty cool to mention. If you want to get your stuff into Amazon FBA quick, and I find pretty damn economical, that's what they do. They specialize that. They have a much better like spiel on what they do, but in a nutshell, from a seller, they get my stuff into FBA and selling quicker, and that is priceless to me. Yeah, you hear a lot about these fee increases on Amazon right now, and yes, they bid into your profits. You're not going to be able to convince Amazon to walk those things back. What you can do is figure out other ways in your business, and it's the beginner hour, so I don't want to go too deep, but you can think about other ways to carve out profits that you probably should have been doing anyway, and just use this as a wake-up call. One of those ways is to get your inventory in more affordably and quicker, because if it's sitting on a truck somewhere or 6 weeks in Amazon's dock or wherever that no man's land place is that I feel like my inventory sits sometimes, it's not making you money. It's costing you money, a lot of money, right? So that opportunity cost, the ability to turn your inventory. So holler at these guys. I don't know if they're staying at 3:30, after 3:30 to network and stuff, but if they are, like, hit them up. You know, I personally, if I was in your shoes and you're just starting, I'd sneak down there and get some blue Long Islands and try to get them a little sauced and work on some pricing. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me. But that's up to you guys. You had a question? Okay, here, let me, just in case. What's the trick to get in?
Yeah, there's 2 stages, right?
There's 3 stages. So, believe it or not, the first one is where everyone gets stuck, and that is, I'm going to do it, and they actually do it, right? So that's a pretty critical one, right? You get approval from all your people that you're going to do it, and you do it. The first step is you got to apply. So you got to apply to the Amazon Influencer Program. That's pretty straightforward. Now, if you already qualify, meaning you already have enough followers in their eyes, and this is where it starts becoming open for interpretation. The safest one that I've seen, but you can go any way you want, is 5,000 followers on your Facebook business page. That's it. But it tells you, I mean, it's going to tell you 20,000 on Instagram.
You mentioned a trick to get 5,000 followers.
It's not really a trick. It's running a few different ways. You could run a paid ad. I'm about to put out, like I said, my first course for like $7 showing how to do this. But if nobody else has questions, I'll literally just open it up and show you how to do it. Or after at 3:30, I'll open up my computer and show you. But you're just going to create a paid ad. One of the many paid ad options that you have on Facebook, and they have a bunch, is likes to page. So it's one of the easiest ones in the world to do. The objective of likes to page. And then you're just going to run a paid ad. Now, if you run a paid ad, and this is for your business and it's for your product, I suggest you target people that are going to buy your product. In this case, since this Facebook business page is only going to be used to get into the Amazon Influencer Program, what you're basically going to do is you're going to target 3rd world countries. And you're going to target places to where the cost per click is like nothing. Think, again, no offense to these places, please, but like think Rwanda, you know what I mean? Or like think, you know, something like that. I found Honduras works good. Nothing against Honduras. But just that's what you're trying to do. And all you're trying to do is say, hey, your ad is going to show up as like my page and follow my page. You might put something like, follow me for great tips and swag and blah, 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 that we put out. They're going to quickly hit a like, usually because, oh my God, it's something from the US, and an ad from the US, must be super cool. So it's easier to get the click, and it's super affordable. And usually for like well under $150, you could get those 5,000. Right. Now, once you've done that, some people apply, they get it. Most people get it at that stage, unless you're Tom and they're trying to like stick it to them. Which, congrats, Tom's back up, right? He's unfortunately, he did not upload 1,000 videos in the first week like much of us thought. But how many was it?
1,305.
Really? They're all up?
No, right now, 550.
Yeah, that's it. But the next step is you need to submit 3 videos. You need to get 3 products and 3 videos. And this is where a lot of like the debate comes in and the strategy, because on this one, getting approved for the Amazon Influencer Program is pretty straightforward and easy as long as you have the followers. Getting approved for on-site monetization is a different story. Now, you know, should your face be on? Should it not be on? Should you say this? Should you not say that? What product should you do that? That's where it starts getting deeper. But you need to, the second step is to submit 3 products, get them approved. They unlock you for on-site monetization, and then you're good to go. That's it. But the step that everyone talks about is that second step. Yeah, and we could go in deeper afterwards. Yeah.
Well, one question I probably can solve on the meeting. The other one is because Amazon also sent me an email that I need to have like a insurance policy.
Yep.
Because I already spent the $10,000. So I don't know if that.
The absolute easiest one, we have an amazing sponsor for that.
I just saw it.
Assureful.
Yeah.
I contact them or ping me.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't like making, I usually don't have the time to make intros to everyone, but if it's someone who's actually sponsoring us, I'll do a personal email intro to you and them. Sometimes it's the freaking owner, you know what I mean? Like, and then they hook you up with who you need. But with Assureful, that's exactly what I would do if you want me to do an email intro. They're great. There is a lot of options out there. One of the things I really like about them, too, is the flexibility with what's going on in your business. So they're not just locking you in on one rate as if you're a $1 million a year seller. The other one is they're not a broker or anything like that. They're the actual underwriters. So like they claim that by doing that, the price doesn't have to be stepped on, and they can give you some of the best rates. And that's what I've seen so far. Yeah. Plus, they know how to do all that back-end connection with Amazon to actually prove like you have your thing. Good?
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
What else do we got? Really? No questions? You want to be picked on, or you just want to listen today?
No, just listening.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Yourself? All right. I was expecting to have like, oh, here's one that I wanted to kind of like bringing up as news, and I feel like just like with the Chris McCabe topic that's coming up, anytime we talk about account, like I was mentioning with account suspensions and stuff, that I feel this need to almost defend Amazon because it's not all doom and gloom, but when something does happen, you really need to step it up. The new one that's going around right now that's like, some people are calling it, somebody had a good word for it, but it was basically like we're in an end of times, extinction event. That we're in an extinction event scenario with Amazon because of these fee increases. One of my closest friends, who I hope is listening, Ramon, he's, I think, leading the charge on that. So I usually don't pay a lot of attention to Shopify, but at the same time, and it's like these guys got together, at the same time that Amazon raised their fees, to kind of keep in perspective that this is not just like run from Amazon type of thing. You know, Shopify raised their fees by 34%. And in addition, raised what they charge you per sale by 1% to 1.5%. And if you are an established seller, so like let's say we're talking about the more established sellers that do over 500,000 a year on the Amazon space, right? If you're in one of those, you're on one of these higher plans anyway for like headless Shopify, and you were probably paying $1,500 a month at those higher levels. You're now at $2,500. They've raised you like $1,000 a month. So keep in perspective that Amazon's not the only one raising fees, and like every business that you're in, whether it's Amazon, whether it's a brick and mortar store, whatever you're in, things change and you have to adapt to them, right? Some of the ways we talked about adapting was, C group freight, find a better way to make more money. What's up? I was talking about you earlier. I don't know if you were listening.
No,
Yeah. Mostly good.
Oh,
Mostly, yeah. No.
That's good enough.
Yeah, you take out, you can get it. But keep that in mind, like when you're hearing this online, because right now it's kind of loud. Like if you just go on social media and you look at this, and it's like, oh my God, everybody's losing money. You know what I mean? And in reality, that's not the case, right?
But even though with that, with Shopify increasing those fees, is it still worth it to go with Shopify, or?
Yeah, I think we're at a time like, and this is going to be one of the, I'll mention this in a second, like some changes that we're looking to do with like Wizards of Ecom. So you kind of get a feel like with where the group's going and where you should be investing your time. When this group started, when we're going on our 10-year anniversary, 10 years ago, I would have told you that if you were just starting on Amazon and you wanted to create your own brand, just focus on Amazon and don't create anything else. Even then, though, I said you should build an email list and at least like a one-pager on your website. But I got beat up a lot for that because it was like, yeah, it's worthless. Like nobody I know around me, all you need to do is give away products and use a two-step URL. That's all you need to do. And then every year there's some kind of like so-called extinction event that happens, and you need to adapt to it. The last few things that have happened over the last few years really make a very compelling case to, yes, you just have to have a site. I'm a fan of a content site that supports an e-commerce site. You don't have to. That could make it more complicated for some people. But yeah, at a minimum, you should have a website for your brand. WordPress, Shopify, Kajabi, whatever you want to use is not that important to me, or depending on the model you want to do. But yes, you totally should. Now, most people that are coming to the group are not starting with hundreds of thousands of dollars at their disposal to start a brand. We agree there, or who's disagreeing? Okay. Most people are not in that scenario. So what it comes down to, you can set up the site, no problem. Pay very close attention, though, to your monthlies. On a monthly recurring level, Shopify almost immediately becomes more expensive than your $39. I know we're not comparing apples to apples here, to your $39.99 per month. If you pop in, like you're like, oh my God, I want a subscribe and save model because my business is going to do good on subscribe and save, and you build out this site that has all these plugins on it. I find a lot of Shopify people that don't know what they're doing in this situation where they're pretty much 10 months away at this recurring monthly on subscriptions from running out of their budget, and they haven't even talked about inventory. So just be very aware of whatever site you do open when you start, that's the case. The other thing would be is I don't care how beautiful you make your site. You build it and they will come is the biggest line of crap you will ever hear in your life. Just building a site does not mean that they're all going to start coming. So back to the point of you're not starting with a whole bunch of money, keep in mind, like if you're starting with a smaller budget, your money is probably, and let's say you are talking about Amazon private label, almost 100% of your budget is going to be better spent on Amazon advertising right now. If you're starting with a smaller budget. If you have a much, much bigger budget, then, you know, I don't want you to steal or like put your budget in the wrong place. It's not going to give you the biggest bang for the buck. And now you start putting it into Facebook ads on your site. Like 30% of your budget is going to like Facebook ads or Google ads, and you sell an e-commerce product. It's just very backward. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're on social and you're getting bombarded by, like, right now, that's all the noise that, you know, you hear. A lot of the times, what I do sometimes when you look at something like this is you then go into that person's profile and just look at like what their history of posts are in that group. And come to find out this is the same person way back when was saying trademarks are a waste of money. This was the same person back then that was saying two-step URLs, no, you shouldn't invest in email. Like, they've always been kind of like flavor of the week sellers, and they're just really complaining and not giving solutions to the current change that's going on, all right? At the end of the day, that impact, what's up, bro? Oh, we're bringing everybody out, right? Everybody's having account problems today, I see, huh? By the way, thank you. Is this your first time seeing it?
First time, yeah.
Yeah, by the way, huge thank you to Alex. Alex just came out and got this TV and made it a reality. So thank you, man. Yeah, getting back, I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. Good. Any other questions? No? I thought you were raising your hand. Really? I didn't even plan to do any sourcing. I figured, like, I hadn't been here in 2 weeks. There'd be a whole bunch of questions coming up. Any on the stream, by the way? Any questions coming on the stream?
No, Ting and Daisy say hi.
Is Ting on the way? Ask Ting. Well, I'm asking her. Ting, are you on the way? Daisy, you on the way?
So your advice is to invest in Amazon, put the product in Amazon, and then do advertising in the Amazon platform, not outside.
No,
Is that what you said? I mean, maybe
well, assuming you're starting with a very small ad budget, that kind of sets the tone. It also is assuming, like, what selling model are you talking about doing? I don't advise you going to go start a website if you're doing arbitrage. I don't see that happening right now. If you know you're about to, like, get into wholesale, then yeah, I personally am of the opinion of having a strategically set up website for your wholesale business. I think that really does help. But what I'm saying is, don't go out there and create a website for the PL business you want to start in 3 years and pay your monthly Shopify for 3 years until you get there. Like, that's what you shouldn't do. And the other one, like, we talk about Amazon a lot here in the group, obviously, but it just depends what you want to do. Like, if you want to get into selling CBD, Amazon's not a thing for you. Then yeah, go all in on your website, and everything should be on your website, and run ads on your website, you know? But if you're a private label seller, and you want to get into private label, what I would recommend is, as part of your setup process, assuming you have a small budget, is to at least set up a website. And if you have a little more, and you want to just feed my sickness for a little bit, I highly recommend having a separate content site, which doesn't sell anything, and just focuses on ranking, and having a separate, you know, e-commerce site, Shopify, Kajabi, WooCommerce, whatever you want to do. That's irrelevant to me. Set up, at a minimum. Yeah. If you have a specific number, hey, how are you?
Good, are you?
Good. Do you have a specific budget in mind that you're talking about? Like, because if you tell me you're going to spend, yeah.
I'm just learning
Yeah.
to see what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, right now, a sweet spot for Amazon, I think it's a great spot to be in, is consumables, right? They've always been good, but we go to a show every year at the end of the year called PLMA, Private Label Manufacturers Association. If you go to the Wizards of Ecom app, free in the App Store, and you go to the bottom right, what is it called? Files? There's a tab there called Files. And if you go to Files, you're going to be able to see the PLMA 2024 catalog, right? I've pulled it up on the screen before, but I also have some looms that I can send you on if what I'm about to say sounds overwhelming, because I'm going to use AI, is you can get this massive catalog, drop it, get the PDF link that's there, go to ChatGPT, and just ask it questions to kind of query the catalog. So if you want to sell, I think one of the things we were looking, Andres and I were looking at was dance chocolate while we were there, or like vibe chocolate to get people, you know, kind of like an energy chocolate, but just positioned differently. You would then go to that catalog and you would just search for chocolate manufacturers in the US. Whatever nuts, whatever food you want to get, pasta, whatever food you're looking for, I think food's a great category to do just because it's a consumable. And the reason for that is, yes, prices are up across the board, but with food, even if you don't make a great deal of profit on that first sale of whatever consumable you're selling, that person is, the likelihood of them reordering that product or getting on some kind of, you know, recurring monthly subscription with that product is very high. It's also something that's going to help you a great deal when you're off of Amazon and you're on your own, because the cost of acquisition is going to be so much higher. That the lifetime value of that customer off Amazon is going to do good. So now you have a product. A lot of people have this Amazon product and they sourced it for Amazon, and when they try to go off Amazon, there's no such thing. Like, just because it does well on one is no guarantee that it's going to do well on another. There's a guy named Colin Foster who pops in and out every now and then. He's about to teach a pretty in-depth Shopify, Amazon to Shopify class in the next few months here. But he's got this really cool example that has to do with a toothbrush. And it's like, if you have a wooden toothbrush or regular toothbrush and you're selling it well on Amazon, maybe you got in a long time ago, you did some black hat stuff, whatever the case may be, you somehow ranked this thing on Amazon. Attempting to sell that same toothbrush on Shopify is going to be murder. Like, your cost of acquisition, the amount of times people need a toothbrush, it's a huge loss, it's a huge loser. The next one, he says, is this more of like the, you know, this kit, and it's got like the electric toothbrush with the water pick, and it has all this different stuff together. Goes, this is something that can do really well on or off Amazon. And then on the other side, you have a wireless, handless toothbrush. And it looks like a mouth guard. You pop it in your mouth, and it just, I don't know what that thing does, but it just bounces around and scrubs your teeth, right? That's too far out there, and it's very, like, people are not solution aware of it. So it's not going to be a good fit on something like Shopify or Amazon, actually. But you with me on that? You like the analogy, like the 3 toothbrushes? I've used it a lot. It's really good. But when you get into a consumable product, it's going to fit on both. Yeah. One time, can I bring up the pork rind one you were going to do? Yeah. He had this like a keto at one point. He was looking at like a keto pork rind type thing, which sounds delicious. But like, that's something that would have worked well on both. It was consumable, someone that was probably expensive to rank with keto, but it's something that you could sell on Amazon. People would get on a subscribe and save on it. You might lose or not make a great deal on that initial sale, but if you're into keto and you love pork rinds, you're going to keep buying this thing. And the same thing off Amazon as well. You could really go wide with that on Shopify. So consumables have a huge, and you could find a product like that through PLMA. Or you're not going to go in there and find someone that says, I do keto pork rinds, but you're going to find people that do chips, and they can do pork rinds, and they can do keto stuff, and you just talk to them. So I would query the catalog, try to make plans to come with us in November to PLMA in Chicago, warm Chicago in November, super warm. And it's a good time. Last time we had a nice little turnout of people that came. I didn't hear any complaints from anyone as far as like the ROI they got from did you go with us last time?
No.
Yeah.
I don't want to go this year.
Yeah, they got a real,
You go last year.
well, we had locals, and then we had wizards from like different states that were nearby, and some of them came in. But I would say local, 10 to 12 locals, and maybe a handful of like Steve came. Steve was local to Chicago, and there was a few others. What I'm starting to see is when I used to go to PLMA, you saw no other Amazon sellers. And now when you're walking the halls, you got somebody as, I rank your products on Amazon shirt walking the hall. So they're starting to come over. I think there's still plenty of time to do this because majority of these people are putting out courses on why you shouldn't sell consumables, or they're just thinking supplements and not food. But I think there's still plenty of time to get in there and do good, but just use the catalog. It cannot be easier than that. Wizards of Ecom app, free. Files, catalog, ChatGPT. I mean, you can.
That's too much value, man. You gotta start charging.
You think, I'm gonna, okay, for now on, $9.99. No. No, do it. Yeah. How are we? And where's Chris? How are we on? Any questions? No? No. What is it?
What do you think about the TikTok shop?
I think I would be talking about it a lot more if I had a lot more firsthand experience doing it. My experience now has just been with like other people's brands and tinkering around on it. I got this TikTok course on Udemy and Skillshare just to like see what was out there, and it seems very easy to do. It seems like the secret sauce though for TikTok, and then I'll tell you like what's looking like a very real benefit that I've been trying to shoot out the water, and that Ramon and I actually, what was the name of the podcast? D2C pod? Chew on This. So with Chew on This, welcome. Yeah, help yourself to any food or drink and come in. So with this podcast, Chew on This, they went out there and actually put a number to it, and they were like, there's like a 15 to 20% lift in your Amazon sales when you're doing stuff on TikTok. So I really wanted to debunk this. So just like working with a lot of people that were willing to do TikTok, we did it. I actually see that it's not 15%. It's like 20 to 25%. Are you seeing the same thing?
I wish I was seeing something.
It's more like 20 to 25%. And to the best of my knowledge, the reason why that is kind of like two things. One, the person on TikTok, they're either running paid ads or they are giving away a very generous cut in commission via an affiliate commission on the back end to an influencer on TikTok, which is promoting them, it seems, or motivating them to create content and sell the product. But either way, whatever happens, if the person likes the product, it seems to be close to 20 to 25% of them don't like how long they're going to wait for the product or don't trust TikTok and are jumping over to Amazon to buy. And again, no solid, like, I can't prove that with something, but just what I'm seeing across the board is that's what it does seem like. So I would love to shoot it down. I wanted to disprove the 15 and come back very happy that it was 5%. But that's what I'm saying. To be fair though, my sample size is only about a dozen brands. So it's not, but still, like at a dozen brands and you're at 20 to 25%, I'm really liking that. Yeah.
So would you say a strategy then would be to offer a small commission to, let's say, someone else in your family who's a TikTok influencer? So give them $1 instead of $5, have them do a TikTok ad for your product, visibility to the lift there. Because I do agree with you that when I've gone on TikTok and I want to get something, it's like 7 to 8 days before you get it.
Yeah.
And you can go look and do a parallel search on Amazon and get it in 2 days, right? So
Yeah.
you want to get it right away.
But do you think
Let's pass the mic around too, because some of these questions are gonna.
do you think they can compete with Amazon at some point?
Compete now.
I
know, but
I feel
at that level.
I feel like they're.
I really think Amazon need more competition.
I wish they had like.
Somebody like really.
I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping they do, that they're like, if there was like 3 other platforms nipping on Amazon's heels, it would just give us so many more opportunities to do a bunch of different stuff. It would also force Amazon to maybe listen more in different areas instead of being able to like just ram certain things down the pipeline, even though I think compared to other platforms, they're pretty fair. I don't think it's gonna be, I don't think TikTok's gonna be banned. How about that? Like, I really don't think it's gonna be banned. The majority I read, like if I listen to like some government thing, apparently it's owned by China. But the more I kind of read on it, it seems like a lot of it, or most of it, is owned by US companies. So I'm not sure who's right in that whole situation. I don't think it's gonna be banned. And if it is, it's gonna be years. I think that ship has flown. As a matter of fact, I think there's a lot more pressing things in the world right now, especially this country, that we should be focusing on besides TikTok. But whatever, that's me and my GED talking. I don't know global politics. I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a great option for those products that you really can't, like those garlic presses and those products that you can't really make margin on too much anymore on Amazon. I think they're going to be a good spot for that. I think they're going to be a great spot for, when we mentioned earlier, the 3 types of toothbrushes: the stick, the electric with the water pick, and then some wireless handheld, you know, I don't even know if that thing exists, Jetsons like toothbrush that you just put in your mouth and it moves. That one, awareness plays I find on Amazon are still kind of difficult, whereas TikTok seems perfect for it. So if you wanted to get the awareness for your product, have it on Amazon and you get the lift. I think it will. Yeah, I think it will. As long as they're at 7-8 days delivery though, like no one's jumping on that. Like,
You put it on TikTok and you put it on Amazon and you let people come that want it
Yeah.
cheaper with 7-day delivery, buy it on TikTok. People that are willing to pay more for a 2-day delivery, they buy it on Amazon.
100%.
That's what I.
No, 100% I agree, but to his question was like, are they going to be like a competitor, say a close competitor? Let me add that into Amazon. No, they're going to be.
I think the moat that Amazon has with their logistics, nobody's gonna touch for at taking.
Yeah, and they also have that Apple vibe to them. Like when I got Prime, I also got Audible. I also use Alexa. Like they have that ecosystem that's there. And this is what I think is a major one. You guys want to chime in on? By the way, I'm going to throw out there that my wife and I will grab food and we'll shop at Walmart. I am not against Walmart, right? But if you have 2 houses, identical cars in the driveway, everything, and one of them has 3 big Amazon boxes in front of their house, and the other one has 3 big Walmart boxes in front of their house, which house makes more money? Like, what would you, if you had to pick one, like, what would you say, right? And Amazon has that. You don't want to say it, right? But like, we're thinking the same thing. I don't think TikTok suffers from that. And I think that's holding back Walmart. So like, imagine if there was TikTok branded boxes that popped up everywhere. If I saw those 3 houses with some TikTok boxes, I'd be like, man, they're cutting edge, they're trending, like they're pushing. It just doesn't have that same effect that I think Walmart, personally.
It might be one day.
Well, yeah, I don't, you're gonna see a bunch of TikTok boxes in front of a house with a big American flag on it. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people that it wouldn't work, but like for the average thing, like you know, you guys get what I'm saying, right? Or disagree, feel free to disagree. I don't think TikTok suffers from that. eBay's the same way. I personally, I think that's held eBay back for a while. Like everyone.
That's what I see. I mean, TikToks, you sell products only if they're much cheaper than on Amazon. Just
Right.
Like eBay.
And the same product.
Yeah, you can post both products.
Yeah.
One have to be like, in TikTok have to be really cheap so you can see some sales. If not, you're not gonna see any sales.
Yeah, to your point though,
That's
no,
what
I don't think they're gonna come anywhere near close to being a close competitor. But I am dying for a few people to do it.
How long is it gonna be until Amazon starts killing the buy box because they see the product cheaper in TikTok?
Yeah.
What do you think that's gonna happen?
I don't know. I'm hoping not, because I feel like if Amazon continues in that direction, I feel like that's grounds for antitrust.
They do it now with eBay, with Walmart,
Yeah.
they do it now.
Yeah,
They just don't do it with TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I love seeing TikTok do what they do. It's kind of like, oh, this is how it could happen. That's it. But to your point, I wish there was a whole bunch of like runners up to Amazon nipping on their heels. I think it would be better for all of us. We'd sell more product. But I don't know, it's TikTok. My gut still says YouTube. They have the only thing they're missing is the logistics part of it, but they have Google Ads, extraordinarily robust. They have all the creators on the platform. They have the short form content. People watch it on their TV, they do whatever. So the stuff Amazon's trying to do, they have all of it. If you changed something to where now when I'm talking, and maybe I don't even have to do it, but like my shirt that I'm wearing and everything else, I click a button and it says, yes, if you approve what we tagged you correctly, if anyone, you know how many times I bought something and the person wasn't selling anything? I was like, I love the mic he's using, I wanna get that mic. And I just looked it up and found it, but instead I can click it and the creator makes money. Like, I think you're looking at an overnight game changer. Like, they just need logistics. Like, I don't see how YouTube would be able to do next day and 2-day delivery. Like, I was hoping they would buy, what was that, Deliver. I was hoping they would buy Deliver. But Shopify did and then sold it, so it goes to show what I know.
How about Temu? I see they Temu using Amazon logistics to deliver the product.
Yeah,
in some
Temu.
cases.
I love looking at Temu and seeing like, wow, again, this is how something could disrupt, but You're gonna use Temu when I guess when you don't care about the quality of the product, which is a lot of stuff that we buy.
Sometimes.
I'll tell you what, I think Temu killed drop shippers. Like, I think
Temu's using a system called 321. Basically, they're importing into Mexico, and then from Mexico coming into us, and that's how they're avoiding tariffs. Temu's a company, publicly traded company called Pinduoduo, PDD,
Yeah.
which is their company, their kind of their Amazon company in China. So PDD, look them up. Temu's doing 321, kind of skirting. the
Chris?
tariff system.
What music do we play when Thunderstruck? I'm thinking AC/DC, no? No?
You're the master.
Okay, I'm gonna do, you can't go wrong with Thunderstruck. Hold on, hold it, 'cause I want him with the mic, and I want you to be able to get on the mic and say that. Go.
Carlos, I remember one day you shared a video about those guys, ladies, I think they did with TikTok, selling a product with a bunch of other things in a box, pickle.
No, you shared that, right?
You shared?
Candied pick, was it candied pickle that you shared? Yeah.
So somebody shared in the group and it was interesting. So I was thinking, they say they were successful, but to me, what they were doing is kind of creating a bundle.
Yeah, so okay, I think what they did is genius, and I love looking at that stuff. But again, forgive me, everybody here, for being crude, all right? But the other one that we posted about was sex chocolate, right? I think anytime you get the word sex into a product, or like when I see somebody doing a product and it's like wet t-shirt selling a bicycle, I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're not going viral because of the bicycle, right? You had phallic object with a pickle being eaten. Like that's been proven across a lot of different niches that's a recipe, not necessarily does that make it a good business model that you could replicate unless you hired someone like that. So like I give them their props. I was just like, okay, well, if this was replicated and all things being equal, how would that have played out? If you got up there and we're eating this pickle and we're talking about the pickle, I'm willing to bet it does not do as good as what they did or she did. That's my thing. The thing with this,
They were eating a pickle.
you don't have to.
They were not sexifying, the girls that were showing up were very normal-looking girls.
There's a YouTube channel that shows several different products that were sold with an ad of a woman leaning over playing billiards, and she shoots, and it shows a little, nothing, I mean, all amazing, all classy or whatever. It sold more with that one and had nothing to do with billiards or pool. That's all I'm throwing out there. That's good marketing. I think that's great advertising. When someone comes to me and says, like, you think that's a good business model you should do? I look at the sex chocolate one. Sex chocolate's great. You know how they mentioned all the influencers they broke out and they did on TikTok and to rank it? You guys saw the article I posted? Have you gone into those videos to look at the influencers of those, that actually, like what those influencers were? So something tells me that if all of us got together and did an influencer video for you, it would have hit differently, is what I'm trying to say. You, but I'm trying to catch you on the thinness. All right, what do we got? Still got like 20 minutes. I love these questions. Still no questions from the stream, by the way? Just wanted to check in on that. You're good? All right.
Oh, could you, okay. Please repeat the question from the in-person audience.
Okay, I'll try to do better repeating. Our second mic, for some reason, is not acting great, so we'll see. Any other questions?
Carlos, how about Sheen? Do you dabble in that a little bit? Do you have any info on that?
I've looked at it enough. There was a time when like any new thing that came out, I could spend a ton of time on, but now it's like, with the extra time that I have, it's like, do I put it into learning AI? Is it TikTok? Is it, maybe I just stay in my lane and hire someone who really knows Sheen at some point? So no, I mean, I think I might have put more than most people into looking at it. I think it's a cool thing to look at. Do I think it's going to be, I think it's cutting into like some of Amazon's apparel. But again, into the cheap apparel for people that are kind of like, I don't care what this cost, or, you know.
I was at a show not too long ago up in Vegas. I think it was the Prosper show. And they had a stand there, and from what they were telling me is that they've been aggressively trying to grab more of the market share of like the e-commerce space, to where a lot of the commissions and stuff that they're taking from the seller is very minimum to none.
Yeah, I think they dominate the Ross and Marshall buyers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think they do very good at gobbling up a lot of the Ross and Marshall buyers. Ross and Marshall buyers, no offense to them. They were buying also on Amazon. I think they buy less on Amazon and they start buying some on Shein, so that's gonna take some. Yeah,
There's a reason why Amazon lowered the percentage fee.
for apparel. Yeah. That's, yeah. So all of that, and all of it coming out of Asia is very exciting to watch, to see how it could happen. And my mind just keeps going back to YouTube. So like, how would this look like if it was done by YouTube? Because they're also they're in every country, so it'd be very easy to just put it together.
Google has AI, right?
Yeah, Google has all of it. It's all there. They're missing logistics.
So, yeah, if they can grab it, if the AI can analyze the video that you're saying,
Yeah, they're missing logistics. They don't suffer from a trust issue, even though it's a Google thing, and when you say Google, it does, but not so much YouTube. They don't have the trust issue. They don't have the perception of like used auction stuff like eBay. They don't have any of the baggage that could come with it. But
But they have no intention of getting to the.
seems like it. Seems like they don't. Yeah.
Software is there.
Yeah, it seems like they don't. But if you were to his point was like, I think about it a lot. I was like, who's going to be that next disruptor? I would put really good money that it's not Walmart, as much as I wished. You know, it's really good money that it's not going to be Walmart. I don't think Walmart's going anywhere, but they're not going to be an e-commerce competitor, a close e-commerce competitor to Amazon. How we doing? Good?
What was it like? What I was
Oh, yeah.
gonna say was, so my wife's finishing the TikTok influencer thing pretty hard. And she hasn't made much. Like, the commissions seem really high, but you don't really, like, I guess none of the products, they haven't found the product that's selling well or not, but one thing that she has gotten is a lot of free product. Because on TikTok, she just will find the product and be like, hey, I like your product, can I have a sample? Okay, and they send it to her.
Yeah, it's
No questions asked, where on Amazon, she's had a hard time getting, even, because she hasn't been able to get on that creator connections thing. She qualifies for it, but for whatever reason, it doesn't pop up. But the funny thing is that a lot of there's people that are on creator connections that have products on there that are on TikTok. She's gotten their products from TikTok, and then made a video on TikTok, and made a video on Amazon of the same product.
yeah,
And then we find out it's the same people, because they say, hey, thanks for your video on Amazon. She's like, oh, I didn't know you were selling on Amazon too. She didn't know it was the same seller.
at this point, we're saying no to people that are willing to give us like $50 for video. Like, it's just,
So they're selling the product
yeah.
so far.
It's so easy to get quality products right now if you just reach out through Creator Connect or TikTok or anything. You just contact the brand and ask, whereas before it was kind of like, let's just sit there and wait for, it's great, like, especially if you're just starting, like as soon as you're going to get all these Chinese people that are going to reach out to you and want to sell it, and the majority of the stuff is not like great and selling a lot. Some of it is, but if it's not great and selling a lot, even if they're offering the $50, we're just passing. Because yeah, you just contact them with a semi-intelligent pitch and they're just giving you free stuff.
Sends all
That's
the
changing. That's changing. I've heard a lot of different sellers talking about, we just give out too much product and it's not really moving the needle.
Yeah, I could see that, but if I'm going back into your pitch, if you're going into a good pitch, and yes, we're connecting other stuff. So if we know it's a kid product or a family product, we're dropping Angelina and Carlos and showing the subscribers. I think there's always a spot for that. Or if you can just create a deck that shows like, here are the results we've had for other people. If you took the time to put something like that together and here are the sales we've gotten off this, that's what, you don't get caught up in that and you're still gonna be one of the small yeses that come through. But yeah, the floodgates have been open. It's like, take. Yeah, at some point, you close the purse. But yeah, man, it's just like such a crazy time to get, and on the TikTok.
contacted her without even, like, there's people that have contacted her, usually it's been Chinese companies.
Yeah, and on the TikTok ad side,
Message.
we're not seeing much in the way of money. I think we're like, for the amount of, again, it's just so early and you have no idea what you're doing is right or wrong, but we're like under $20. And
She's put up a bunch of videos and it hasn't really.
we haven't put up a bunch of videos, but it's like the amount of thought that she, thinks about doing it is, I'm waiting for someone to just take off on TikTok that we can get in here or that has other thing, and then we'll copy that. You have somebody, Tom?
No, I'm trying with the AI fun stuff, but
Yeah. How are you doing on it?
$24 so far?
Yeah, we're like 18, $19, something like that. But no AI. Garbage videos. Sorry, baby, if you're listening. Yeah.
That's all I'm doing, I'm just trying to just AI.
Yeah, And on the other side, you have my wife, God bless her soul. Her videos are doing is like something that you don't really want to watch, but it's still brought in like 18 bucks. But the amount of effort you put in to do it is like, I can't recommend it to anyone right now. Yeah. How are we doing? If there's no other questions, we don't have to force it. I'll start getting set up with Chris with the computer and go for it.
Can you explain the Ross and Marshall?
No,
thing
just
again?
kidding. Oh, sorry. So the question was from Sheen. It was a Sheen, right? Yeah. And what do I think about Sheen? And Sheen, it was kind of stemming from the Alexei's question about being a competitor, and I added in close competitor to Amazon. I think all these other people are not going to be close competitors. I wish Amazon had some really, really close competitors. It would be great, but I think they're competing on the wrong thing. Like Amazon, Walmart thinking, oh, we can get it to you in 2 days. It's just, Amazon has a lot of, Walmart has a lot of baggage that they can't get past, and Amazon doesn't. Like, Amazon is like status. Sheen doesn't have that. But what I do see Sheen going for is like, if you want to buy, my wife does this sometimes, like, why don't you just buy something nice? And she's like, this looks great. This free thing she got off Vine, all right? She's wearing it, it looks amazing. And it was this free thing she got off Vine from some random seller. And I was like, okay. But anyone that does that kind of shopping, or it seems to be a lot of the Ross and Marshalls. Like anytime I come across somebody and they're like, I shop on Shein, I shop on Shein, that's all I do. And you ask them a few questions like, where else do you shop? It seems to be like in their top 3 is like Ross and Marshalls. So I'm just saying like the Ross and Marshalls crowd, if you're one of them and it's not you, then it doesn't apply to you. But like that crowd seems like it's going to get dominated by Shein, my opinion.
Yeah, like dollar stores.
Yeah, that dollar stores, I think.
It's not an Amazon competitor, they're a competitor for.
Yeah, they're a competitor for like Ross and Marshalls and all those other things. I think Temu's a competitor for like these Dollar Generals and like a step above that, but like that's what's going on. Everyone just that you sell online and you get a bunch of sales, you're going to be an Amazon competitor. I was like, yeah, we're not really talking about apples to apples here. Like, you're talking about how to skirt a rule and bounce something to Mexico and come in. They're getting stuff approved with the FAA to deliver stuff in an hour with drones. Like, we're not talking about the same thing here. You know?
When you say Walmart stacks, is that what you said?
Walmart stacks?
Walmart is stacks, right?
No, that there's a status when you buy on it. The example I give, which I'll say earlier, is that you have 2 houses, same cars, same neighborhood, everything is the same, paint, everything is the same, and one of them has a stack of Walmart boxes in the front, and one of them has a stock of Amazon boxes in the front, and you had to say which house made more money. Or it just, that's what it is. So there's a status there that Amazon has. Amazon's not the cheapest place to buy products.
Not anymore.
You know, like, they're,
Used to be like that.
right, so you pay the subscription, it's a status thing, it really is. I'm super proud to say I have Prime and I do all this stuff, but I'm pretty much saying I overpay for stuff, right? Am I saying? Or I'm willing to pay extra for convenience, how about that? Like, the Instacart shopper has a Prime account, right? That makes sense? Okay, last chance for questions, otherwise you have to hold them to the end. And there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, Chris, at the end of it, when you finish, are you able to stay for a little bit?
No,
Like,
not in a hurry.
okay. So he'll be staying to network and stuff like that. So any of the questions you were too afraid to ask Chris publicly, just pull them to the side. And like the gentleman from C Group Freight, if I was you, and I don't know if he drinks, I would go bring some Blue Long Islands and try to get him a little and do negotiation, you know what I mean? Like, that's just me. But C Group Freight's also going to stay at the end as well, and we'll do a lot of networking. So if there's no other questions, we're going to take like a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom and everything. I'm going to help get Chris set up, and we're going to start. Good? Cool. Okay, am I doing this right? We're using your computer, right?
You said you had an adapter?
Oh, I have an adapter, yeah.
Or, well, I realized last time we had an issue, right? So I just sent you do you want me to just send you the
You could use my
slides?
computer.
I mean, I can just send them to you, right?
Sure, what are they on?
Well, they're Google Slides.
Yeah, you could do a
Yeah,
Google
I
slide,
mean,
if you want.
I actually only have like 15 slides.
No, that works. Here, you want to sneak by? Yeah, there's no issue. We could set you up, or this is already connected, and I can just turn a bunch.
Whatever's easier.
Yeah, use this.
Like I see where storing them out.
I don't have a clicker or anything for this, but you just have to.
Yeah, I don't care about that, but
Okay. So here, we have a hot mic here. You'll put this on.
Yeah, yep, yep.
Some of them are good.
Probably
You're gonna
connect to your
email them to me.
Wi-Fi. We can do it either way. I mean, this is what I got. You can either rip me up.
Oh, yeah, I would, yep.
I mean,
totally.
whatever.
But last time you said there was an issue with your computer?
Well, remember we had they weren't displaying,
Right.
and I had to like, you know,
If you want this one set up, you just send me the link and I can open it. Like, this one will display,
Because it goes onto the side.
but if not, here's the adapter.
I mean, I can just try to. You know what? Why don't I just share this whole file with you?
Yep.
That's probably the easiest way, right?
Yep.
Access updated.
Right.
I create one actually. Yeah. No, I didn't. No, you didn't use it.
Not yet, but close.
Mostly good things. What is up? Did you tell me you were coming? What a surprise. If you came down and you didn't tell me, that means you have a problem with your account. Smart move.
You good? Should I just
Yeah.
put this away? You need me to stand approximately where you were, right?
You can move.
Just in the middle?
No, you could totally move. Yeah, I could even get, if you don't want to sit, I could just get the chairs out of the way. Okay, I'll get them out of your way. Let me just make sure you're connected.
I'm a stander.
But you're gonna use an influencer account? Or you're gonna use the shop? The shop account?
Yeah. Slideshow. And then I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was? The formatting? Is that what made it weird last time?
It might be. No one's judging on that.
Maybe that's it. Can we change that at all?
Oh, I don't know how to do slides.
That's what it was last time.
I don't think anyone's judging on that. Like,
The orange text runs
yeah, but-
into the white.
But go to one of the one, like, you can just say what that is.
I mean, I can just say what it is.
Yeah, blame it on my computer, like, unless you're,
Let me just look. I mean, I can just say what it says.
yeah, you can say what it says,
I can also have mine here
if you want.
and read, yeah.
Totally. Hola, how are you? Good, good, good. Puedo defenderme. Sí. Spanglish. ¿The what? Ah, okay. Puedo entenderme.
Stickers? I need stickers.
Okay.
Around my neck?
That way you don't have to worry about it flipping on you or anything like that.
Yep, yep.
You're good set up here? And
Yeah,
I'll introduce you.
yeah.
Okay.
Whenever you want.
All right, let's do it, guys.
Yeah. I'm more of a pacer.
You're not rookie to this, and everybody here's a fan, so.
Yay. Sorry I had to come by myself. She's still in Okinawa from the 2 weeks ago or last week thing.
It's all going good?
So,
Your charger's gonna, your battery? Yeah, your battery like it. And this is plugged in.
it's should be fine. I mean, I charged it before I left.
All right, let's do it. Today we're gonna talk about eBay.
No eBay. No eBay.
During the presentation, do you wanna hold questions, or can people ask questions throughout?
I don't care. We can stop and do questions. Yeah.
All right, so anybody that's gonna have questions throughout, you can, I guess, raise your hand or talk until it, you could blurt them out, just unless it gets crazy, and then we'll do raising hands. And on the stream, I'll be monitoring the stream and asking any questions on your behalf. This is Chris from e-commerce, Chris McCabe. Probably the most knowledgeable person in the space that I know when it comes to, not talking bad about Amazon, but sometimes they do feel like they can be bullying you, or you get caught into some BS. And sometimes, in my case, you're just flat out wrong, whether it's ignorance or whatever. And you need to make it right, because it's your business. Chris is my go-to person for that. Chris has helped several of you in here, actually, but I won't put some of you on the spot. Alexis, every other week. And he's on the installment plan with Chris. Helped a lot of us. I've lost track of how many people I've recommended and that have come back and actually said not only did it help, but the customer service and the experience was great. Chris is amazing, but he also has a rock star team, by the way. It's not just because he's a sponsor. Believe it or not, people that think they can do what Chris does, they probably message me every other day. You know, wanting to give their firstborn to be able to like connect with a great group. No chance. I just want whatever is going to help you guys the most, and Chris is that. So ask really tough questions. Again, it's a beautiful Saturday in Miami. You can be doing anything you want to do. Like, I know you have some questions. I don't know, you might want to ask him one-on-one, but he would be the person to ask. Like, being in the world, meaning like this world that we know of. So, Chris, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah.
By the way, also in
Thanks,
the email
guys.
that I sent out about seller velocity, might be too late, but Chris is here.
I've got a QR code as the last slide, so we'll get to seller velocity. I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, we're going to be talking about at the conference that we do. It's in New York. It's May 1st and 2nd. I'll get you guys info on it, but I'll occasionally refer to it during these slides and during our discussion today because of what the discussion today is, which is mistakes that I see people making, resellers and brand owners, but kind of at this point I'm seeing a lot of different stakeholders everywhere within the Amazon ecosystem making mistakes that are costing them money, that are costing them time, that are costing them sleep and grief. And that was a great intro. Thanks, Carlos. Carlos and I have talked about this kind of off and on for a couple of years. I occasionally call him out of the blue just to complain about either, service provider info or just misinformation, let's say, that's being spread about how appeals work. Obviously, I used to work on the teams that were suspending people, taking listings down, punishing people, warning people, policy violations, and so forth. Enforcement, right? Policy enforcement and performance evaluation, which thankfully was several years ago. I've been doing this for over 9 years. But I think sometime last year I thought we were turning a corner with some of the basic mistakes and some of the more damaging mistakes that I see brand owners making and third-party sellers that sometimes, I tend to talk to people that have been selling for a long time, that have a lot of money at stake, individual ASINs doing 2, 3, 4 million a year sometimes. And, that's one reason we created the conference Seller Velocity in the first place, was because we wanted to make sure the right kinds of info were getting out there, the right kinds of expert speakers were getting out there. At e-commerce, Chris, there's a lot of stuff we don't do. We don't do full service, account management. We don't do ads. We don't do marketing stuff, which is why it's great that you guys talk about it here in the group you have, because there's a need for that. But we've also just noticed that there's a need for education on the appeals process, do's and don'ts, but high-level strategy around do's and don'ts. There's more of a need. As the years go by, we hope that education kind of spreads a bit and people kind of get away from the negative, the bad mistakes that can really trip them up. Amazon doesn't stay in one place. Appeals change a little bit over time. I'm sure some of you noticed in 2024, they've changed the Seller Central appeal button quite a bit. There are different forms you go through. Didn't used to be like that, right? So it's not stagnant. It doesn't stay as just one type of process. They're thinking about managing your appeals in ways that are favorable to them, not just favorable to you, right? Kind of typical Amazon. So that's what today is about. I wrote a couple of articles. I think you posted both of them at this point, covering some of this material, but the top 5 mistakes that we see people making, and then within those types of mistakes they make when they appeal, there's a lot of paths we can go down in terms of, are you compounding mistakes? You make one mistake, do you make it worse, and does it take weeks longer to resolve it if you make a second mistake or a third mistake, or is there a way to hit the brakes and kind of stop yourself in your tracks and minimize the damage, right? Anytime you're already suspended, whether it's account level or ASIN level suspension, decisions you make early on can make a huge difference. I mean, that sounds like a basic thing to say, but when you see, from my perspective, the mistakes people do early in the process and how it leads to weeks instead of days of resolution, and how many appeals they end up, having to send in, sometimes 10 versus 5, sometimes 5 versus 2. So these individual decisions matter, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So yeah, if you guys have questions on some of these, and I know it's chopped off I'll read it from my laptop. Feel free to stop me. I talk about this stuff all the time with people who, minutes and hours matter. So I understand the urgency. If anyone here has something suspended like right now, you want to ask a question about it, I want to make sure I give you a full enough answer so that you're walking away with the right kind of tools to fix it as quickly as possible.
Toss this cube around when you do have a question, so
Yeah.
people listening can benefit from the question and the answer.
Just don't toss it at me. So sending in hasty appeals without any real strategy, kind of what I was saying a minute ago. I'm sort of surprised at how many people are dashing these things off. I know there's a lot of panic that goes into, my top selling ASIN is down, or nowadays they send a lot of messages, hey, we're about to take your listing down and we need an appeal from you. You get a performance notification that says, you're not necessarily suspended yet, but it's like coming, right? Sometimes you get a call from account health reps. And that's another thing that's kind of confusing for sellers. They can come at you from all these different angles, right? I mean, the performance notifications and account health, that part everyone gets and understands. But you're provoked to do certain things like call account health right away, just to find out why you got the notification. What is this thing about? It's murky, it's opaque, it doesn't say anything other than my ASIN's at risk. What do I do first? They're not necessarily going to tell you anything other than a template that you're either already suspended and they need certain things from you, or you're about to be suspended. And this, unfortunately, is where some people already start making problematic decisions, where sometimes they start checking through forms and admitting things happened that didn't happen just to try to get it over with, I guess, or just they think, well, if I just go through the motions with account health, through Seller Central, through the appeal button process, check a bunch of boxes, my listing will be protected from a suspension. Yes and no, depends on the scenario. And sometimes sellers don't even get to the bottom of the message in the performance notification that indicates what your options are. You could dispute it. It could be a false flag, right? Now, yes, there are some sellers out there that read this message, immediately say, this is BS, this is another Amazon bot mistake, another false flag, I'm just going to dispute it. We'll have a basis for disputing it, right? There are multiple options, but make sure you have a clear sense of, do you have a basis for disputing it? Is it a mistake by Amazon, or are you just planning on disputing it and then seeing what happens and then, kind of getting it over with for that individual, for that moment, for that individual ASIN? The other mistake, of course, is, well, we're going to write something up that says, or check boxes to that effect, that say, we understand we did something wrong, we weren't checking our, voice of the customer, let's just say it's condition complaints. We weren't keeping an eye on voice of the customer or the return reasons, or we got some direct messages from buyers that, they weren't happy with the product, they weren't happy with the authenticity they questioned the authenticity of the product, they weren't happy with the condition, they weren't happy with the detail page description of the product versus what they're holding in their hands. Rash decisions, there's kind of never a good time to make rash business decisions, but right now, especially, and in 2024, I would say the last 3 months, there's never been a worse time to make rash decisions that take you down this path where Amazon expects you to commit to that path, and a lot of sellers often don't. They start changing their minds a bunch of times throughout the appeals process, and members of my former team, Seller Performance, will look at one day you're disputing it, one day you're trying to send me a plan of action that we maybe didn't even ask you for, another day you're clicking a bunch of boxes, and then you're coming back the next day and saying, well, I clicked the wrong boxes. If there's no rhyme or reason to what you're doing, they're not going to spend time reading this stuff. And I'm kind of just here jumping through a few, trends that we're seeing, mistakes people make in terms of the types of errors they make when they panic into error. Yes, it's a good time it's better now than 2-3 years ago because typically they do give you a 72-hour window, especially if it's your whole account at risk. If you've got unresolved performance notifications, you've been flagged in a few ASINs, you've appealed, similar to the ways I just mentioned, and it didn't work out, you got denied a bunch of times, maybe you didn't take a moment to figure out why your ASIN level appeals were failing, and then a couple other ASINs were flagged. They're going to call you, hopefully. It doesn't really, the account health assurance, the AHA team or program doesn't really change that much from prior years. It's kind of the same, effort to alert sellers. In the old days, they would just suspend you, right? They wouldn't even bother with this stuff. They would just take your account down, and you'd be doing all this, retroactively. But they wanted to appear friendlier, more communicative. Of course, the relevant details that you need to stop an account suspension in its tracks within that 72 hours, or to resolve it as soon as it happens, they don't part ways with that information. That's what the real guts of what's annotated on your account, what really needs to go into the appeal, what they need to tell you, that's of course the piece that's missing. But at least you have a window of, for some people it's 48 hours, for some people it's 72 hours. I won't spend a ton of time on their SLAs and their KPIs. Sometimes they tell you you've got 3 days to do this. They hit you on a Friday afternoon. You're thinking, come Monday, I'm going to be suspended. I got to work on it all weekend. You submit something within that window, and then you don't hear back for a week, right? This is very common. The deadlines are for you, not necessarily for them. But most people are kind of familiar with, Amazon's communication process, I guess you'd call it. The problems that we see is people submitting either a huge quantity of appeals overnight or within 2 days or so, thinking the first one was rejected. Well, I called account health to find out why. Didn't get really good answers. Maybe you asked the right questions, maybe you didn't. Maybe you were speaking to US reps, maybe you're speaking to India-based reps. We always say only speak to US reps, which I'll talk about in a bit. But don't respond to that with more panicky, hasty appeals, because the more they stack up, the less likely members of my former teams are to read your subsequent appeals or to take them seriously, or like I said a minute ago, if they see you changing your mind constantly, they think you don't know what's going on, and they don't want to spend time working on it, annotating it, documenting that they went through your appeal because they think you're going to come back with a different appeal every other day. And it's not going to address why buyers complained about that ASIN. Let's just pretend it's an ASIN level appeal for the moment. The kinds of complaints you were getting, maybe they just think, okay, so you know that there's a problem and you looked at some complaints, you wrote a few notes in your appeal, but you don't really analyze or understand the pattern behind those complaints. So there's no real, outline to your appeal. You kind of have some scattered info, which is the start of an assessment, but you haven't really completed it You just kind of slapped it together because you thought there was a deadline that you had to meet. Those kinds of, and it could be that they did ask you for a plan of action. I'll talk about POAs more in a second. But, you know, don't even think of admitting that something did go wrong on that ASIN unless they give you some indication that you've had complaints and you verify, you fact check that in your own voice of the customer, in your own return reasons. It's not just one stray product review you got, which could be 2 words, one off-the-wall complaint in voice of the customer or return reasons. Do your own assessment before you put pen to paper, before you even think about submitting an appeal, and decide for yourself if you have the basis to dispute it, because they're maybe hinting or indicating, and especially if you call account health and talk to them, maybe confirming that there's a cluster, there's a data cluster of complaints that are all saying and indicating the same thing. First, just start by verifying, is there any truth to that? Or is this just bots run wild? You had a couple of stray complaints, no one assessed it, no one reviewed it. They just took the ASIN down because you had a couple complaints within a finite period of time, right? At this point, everyone knows it's a mixture of AI/bots / automation and a manual review, a manual investigation by somebody in seller performance or on product quality teams, or it could be the compliance teams as well, which is a totally different approach to appeals. Maybe they spent less than 30 seconds looking at the data that they used to take your ASIN down. They didn't spend a lot of time probably thinking about how much, you know, what's your perspective? How many units do you sell of that every day? You're probably thinking back to whether or not they suspended it before and how you appealed it last time. There's a bunch of things going through your head, not just how much it's going to cost you, but of course the angst around what you're going to do to fix it and appeal it, that is not going through their heads at all. They're looking at basic info, maybe just specific wording of a particular complaint. Maybe they're even assuming that you've had past complaints similar to that, and they're pulling the trigger to take the ASIN down on that basis. So from your perspective, first, fact check, verify that there's any kind of legit basis to having that ASIN go down based on that type of complaint. If not, start with a dispute. And they do give you the option. Again, 2-3 years ago, they were just suspending like crazy. They didn't even have that language at the bottom of the message that would say, if you have, you know, evidence that this is an error, if you want to dispute this action, you know, click through here and appeal it on that basis. A lot of people hire us and we do a dispute and it goes through on one try, because when we ask them relevant questions about what happened and what Amazon might be looking at versus what they're looking at in the, you know, the factual information, the data on their account, they had a great case. They had great evidence for disputing it. There are just as many people, unfortunately, which is one reason I'm talking about this today, who had a great case for disputing it and they didn't dispute it. They thought that capitulation was the right way to handle it, or they talked to somebody that isn't us who told them write a plan of action and submit that, and, you know, admit that you identified the problem and you already fixed it, or some other kind of, you know, crazy advice, and then they sent that in, and then they've kind of removed the ability or lessened the likelihood that a dispute will go through and be accepted because they've already admitted to something that they didn't have to, right? So again, decisions you make early in the process make a bunch of difference. And I mean, it's, you know, if you think you've got a solid reason for doing so and you've got a strategy behind it, then fine, pursue that. But understand that if you make mistakes early on, it can cost you down the road, or just lead to, you know, more appeals, more weeks going by, which is costing you revenue and sales rank, right? Something you could have avoided. Kind of an offshoot of, so what this says, yeah, it's cut off. Using the wrong format, calling into the wrong team, sending appeals to the wrong place. Biggest part, submitting a plan of action and error. So I'm going to start with the bottom part, because the, you know, using the wrong format, talking to the wrong teams, basing an appeal on the wrong advice. Hopefully you're at a place where you've sold enough, you've talked to account health enough, maybe you've appealed these things in the past. And even if you haven't, you have some semblance of understanding that those types of mistakes can be avoided, right? Obviously using the wrong format. or talking to the team, a team that has nothing to do with what took your listing or your account down, you're probably going to get bad advice from them. But especially what I said a minute ago, submitting a plan of action in error. A lot of times on the new appeals forms, I mean, you guys are familiar with in January, they kind of changed up a lot of these forms through the Seller Central appeal buttons, right? They're innovating and experimenting with a lot of these forms anyway, which you probably noticed from 2023 to now. But a lot of times, mostly because they don't want to have seller performance investigators reading through long POAs all day, a lot of times they don't ask you for a plan of action anymore. And this is the biggest mistake I've seen people make. I think this from January right through till now in Q1, a lot of sellers are still sending in plans of action to appeal an ASIN takedown or an account takedown, where Amazon didn't actually ask for one. They didn't take the time to read through the message. I mean, if they ask you for a POA, yes, start working on a POA. A lot of people are grabbing templates they see online, I guess, that are still in the old POA format, or they have an old plan of action from the last time they had to appeal something that they try to modify because maybe they used it in the last year or two and it worked, and they're modifying it, but they're using the wrong format. Amazon didn't ask them for a POA, and all of a sudden they're seeing one from you and they don't know why. So it tells them a couple things. One, you didn't read the message all the way through. Two, perhaps no fault of your own, but for whatever reason you're not familiar with the new appeals process. So, for their own reasons, they're going to wonder why. Their own selfish reasons, perhaps. And three, they already know they're going to reject you because you're sending them something they didn't ask for. It's in the wrong format, probably doesn't have the right info in it. It's possible that you did take relevant factual info on why buyers were complaining about the condition of the item, why people thought the items weren't authentic, why they thought the detail page didn't match the item that they got when it was shipped to them. That info could be in there somewhere, but there's no way in hell they're going to spend the time digging it out. It's up to you to present it the way they want it presented, right? Again, you're doing everything on their terms, not on the terms of what makes sense to you. So that's the one thing. If you get nothing else out of today, don't start a plan of action that they didn't ask for and submit that. I understand there's a lot of bad info out there about writing a plan of action. I mean, I see this stuff myself, and I talk to a lot of sellers who've been rejected several times. And often it's just that they got off on the wrong foot, they sent in the wrong thing. Talking to the wrong teams, like talking to seller support, or talking to account health, talking to reps in India who are reading from scripts, talking from people who are just telling you what they told the last caller, even if it's a complete apples and oranges difference between your two situations. Trusting what they tell you without taking it with a grain of salt. I know you have to have a really thick skin when you deal with those, or it could be catalog teams, it could be compliance teams. Not everyone is as bad as seller support is. Everyone knows how bad seller support is, right? Doesn't matter where in the world they're based. They could be in the US, they could be anywhere. I will never say the compliance teams or calls you do with catalog teams. Some catalog reps, when you have to make changes, update a listing and that before you appeal, remove some language from a detail page before you appeal. Some catalog reps are really good, but no matter who you're talking to, it could be account health services, could be anybody. You have to do some due diligence, fact check what they're telling you. Sometimes that just means calling a couple times again and making sure you're hearing the same story from multiple reps. But making sure those stories line up. Making sure you're not talking to somebody who's making something up on the fly because they don't know what you're talking about, or they think you don't know what you're talking about, or they think you haven't done your homework and researched why the ASIN was flagged in the first place. Or, again, they look and see that you're appealing it, you've maybe already appealed it a couple of times, and you're all over the place. You're just kind of grabbing content that you found online from somebody who posted on the forums. By the way, they see this stuff. If you're using regurgitated content from some other appeal you found somewhere, or was pasted on the forums or a Facebook group or on TikTok or wherever the heck you found it, they're looking at those things all day too. So if they think you're just copying and pasting stuff around, for selfish reasons, they're like, great, I don't need to spend any time on this. I don't need to read anything. I don't need to listen to what there's, if it's a seller performance investigator, they'll just deny it and move on. If you're on the phone with somebody like Account Health Services, they're thinking like, okay, I'll just pay some lip service to this. I'll give them some generic advice. It looks like they only gave a generic appeal, so this is all making sense. And then I'll skip on to the next one, right? Because they're worried about their metrics too. So don't serve yourself up on a platter to be rejected. And I'm not saying everyone in this room thinks that way. I'm not saying anyone, remotely does, but I see failed appeals 18 times a day. And I'm seeing the same types of mistakes that were all avoidable, like not listening to what support said if it doesn't make sense, not listening to what account health reps say if it doesn't make sense. Feel free to challenge them on some of these points. Don't just kind of passively hang out on the call and let them sort of machine gun this stuff at you without questioning any of it. You can participate in that call too, which is unfortunately one reason why people are submitting POAs where a POA hasn't been asked for. We've noticed, because we're sitting on some of those calls too, we've noticed that account health reps are telling some sellers to appeal with a POA when you're not supposed to. Or it could be a dispute situation where no POA is ever going to be submitted. Even if they keep rejecting your disputes, you probably had a good basis for an escalation, but they're telling you to submit a POA. So don't just do it because they tell you to do it. Do it because it makes sense and because you have a basis for doing it. If they uncover some info that you're not privy to, it wasn't evident by going through voice of the customer, condition complaints, authenticity complaints, whatever it might have been. If they're seeing something that's just internal data, internal annotations, then sure, hear them out. I'm not saying disregard everything they have to say. If it does make sense that there's some buyer confusion on how to use the product and it's resulting in, hey, this item doesn't work, okay, well, maybe there are some adjustments you could make to a detail page, right? So I'm just saying take it with a grain of salt. Don't just summarily reject it. If you are doing POAs, keep it concise. I think it was yesterday or the day before, I got a 9-pager from somebody. They had embedded screenshots instead of attaching them. They wrote a plan of action that had all this extraneous content in it. At this point, anyone who's sold on Amazon for any length of time knows that there's 3 core sections to a plan of action when they do ask for one, right? There's a root causes section where you present your analysis of, why are we here in the first place? What were the reasons behind the causes? Don't just tell us what the complaints were. Tell us why you got those complaints, what the systemic errors were, operational failures, bad info in the listing, and so forth. Root causes is the first section. The second section is always what are the immediate steps you took to mop up the mess, fix the listing, responding to buyers, offering returns, investigating why you had a bad batch of inventory from the manufacturer, so on and so forth. Maybe even removal orders if you have to pull items out of FBA. Any immediate steps to rectify a problem with a particular ASIN or with your entire account. And then, of course, the third section is just future prevention. What are you doing now? Not future steps. What are you doing now to make sure that you don't get those types of complaints again in the future? Not short-term solutions that'll disappear in a month that result in another investigation, another review, and another suspension of the ASIN or the account. 30 days later, they want permanent solutions, right? So is that, no, good, the orange text isn't cut off. So a lot of times they're not looking for a POA, they're just looking for information about your supplier. Could be reselling or a private label, it doesn't matter. They want to understand who your supplier/manufacturer is, link to their website. Typically they want to see the SKUs that you're selling on the supplier's website. Obviously they want to have some understanding of what the relationship is, especially if you're reselling between the supplier and the brand or the supplier and the manufacturer. They don't want too many middlemen, too many products changing hands too many times between you and the brand owner. At this point, they love asking for who your supplier got it from, the supplier's supplier. Sometimes they ask for letters of authorization. Fortunately, we're not at the point yet where they're asking everyone for an LOA for anything they sell. Maybe that's happening in the future. Maybe that's not even that far away. But prepare for that now. Have the supply chain documentation ready to go, so that you have details that they want.
That definitely seems like where it's headed.
I mean, at this point, I would say prepare for that any day now.
Yeah.
Because they're already, it's obvious that they are okay with thinning the herd, right? They've been kind of slowly doing it. I think they're accelerating it a little bit. They're doing it with private label. I mean, now there are some brand owners that are competing with 17, 18, 19 different people for the types of products that they sell. And that's private label. Resellers could be 30 or 40, right? So much competition, everyone piling in. When I go to Europe and I go to conferences or give talks over there, I'm constantly talking to European sellers who won't even get into the US market because of how competitive it is, because of the expense and because of, they don't even know what their ad spend will be. They don't even know what their pricing strategy will have to be to compete with US sellers. Well, you don't have to be European to appreciate that because competition is extremely cutthroat pretty much in every category at this point. And for every type of reseller. I mean, it's not even private label versus reselling at this point. So I think I covered most of that. Anything cut off there? Yeah. Generic statements, making promises without demonstrating how you'll execute those solutions. This is another major, major mistake. I guess I'm kind of surprised, but kind of not surprised. We're still seeing people make the promises. We call them like just promise statements, I guess you could call it. We will do this, we will do that. Without any details, without any process described, any SOP. You don't have to put your whole SOP into the appeal. Sometimes on the Seller Central appeal button forms, they don't even give you a big enough box to put in that much space. But you can still give a short, concise, bulleted list of the steps you're taking. What are the measurable solutions you're putting into place to make sure that buyers don't complain in the future? I mean, essentially, it's a rudimentary exercise in, okay, something's going wrong. You're going to convince us right now that today's solutions prevent tomorrow's complaints. Think of it that way. They don't have a lot of time to go into all of the minutia, so you don't have to get into ridiculous infinitesimal detail. First of all, you don't have that kind of space. You're generally doing, even a plan of action is generally a one-pager, right? But it doesn't take that much space to prove to them that you've got credible solutions, better inspection methods, better quality control. Maybe you're even changing your manufacturer, right? Too many bad batches from the same manufacturer. Well, we went to China, we did some digging, we found somebody new, we've got them already signed, they're already making our next round of products, and the subpar products that Amazon said we had sitting in FBA, we pulled them out. Here's the removal order. That's a real solution, right? Better training. A lot of the appeals that we see that have failed, all they say is, well, we're doing better training, or we're doing new training, or we hired a new training manager to train people better. That's not detail. That's a start, sure. Same thing with SOPs. Well, we've got better SOPs in the quality control process or the inspection process. We have better due diligence, or let's just say it's an intellectual property issue. Well, we hired a lawyer, and so now we have better understanding of intellectual property. That's literally all it says sometimes. No details on what's the lawyer doing with you. Are they working on, patent issues with you, trademark, copyright? Making sure you don't make unsubstantiated claims on detail pages that Amazon will scrub and revoke as soon as you put it up. Those are the details they want. Again, think in terms of like, how does Amazon look at this stuff? They have their own selfish interest at heart half the time, which is we don't have to want to look at your listings. We don't want to have to, nuke them right out of the gate with restricted product flags or compliance flags with our automation, because then we typically have to do like a manual review either as soon as we take your listing down, or you're going to appeal it right away, and we're going to have to look at your appeal and then look at what our automation did. Or we don't want to have to investigate manually seller performance, product quality, compliance teams, whoever it might be, over and over and over again because you keep disputing that we took the wrong action. We looked at it and we said it's the right action. So if you refuse to put those types of details in the appeal, number one, you're dissuading them and discouraging them from reading it at all. And number two, you're hurting your ability to come back and convince them that you have viable solutions that you've already put into place in the future. They're going to start thinking you're just telling them what they want to hear and you're just making stuff up, or you're just scrounging around on the internet trying to find somebody who sells on Amazon who had the similar problem and you're trying to borrow from some of their ideas. And again, a lot of people are doing this. I understand the desperation. Maybe they are genuinely out of ideas and they're not sure what to do about it. Maybe they're getting rejected a few too many times and they're getting discouraged. But keep in mind that people at Amazon have seen those same appeals that you're borrowing from. And it just looks like you're not interested, or you're too lazy, or you're not doing your homework, or you don't care, or you're half paying attention. And their answer, I'm not saying there aren't reasons why you might appeal incorrectly in a panic or in an anxious state. That's definitely justifiable. I'm just telling you their perspective is, why should we spend time on you? We've got thousands of other appeals to go through, and you're giving them an easy layup for not having to read it, not having to spend time on it. And it does suck that they don't do their jobs better and annotate better, and they just write invalid POA. Sometimes it just says 2 words. You'll call account health and you'll talk to these guys, right? And you can, if you do it enough, you can kind of get a sense for, is there anything even written down that indicates that my last appeal was read? Does it just say a couple of words like invalid appeal? Does it annotate, something that's not even relevant to your appeal or your case that indicates they didn't take it seriously and they didn't read it? So instead of saying invalid appeal, sometimes it just says generic appeal or template appeal. They won't necessarily tell you this, right? They kind of give you their version of it. They're not supposed to read to you from the annotations on your account. But you can kind of, if you get on enough of these calls, especially if you talk to enough US-based reps who kind of understand that they can save themselves some time, not just you some time, make a 30-minute call 10 minutes by just kind of cutting to the chase, you can kind of get a sense of, yeah, there's something annotated there that indicates that they think I used a template or I didn't spend any time on it. Or maybe you spent a lot of time on it, but you're just heading off in the wrong direction. You're giving them the wrong info about your ASIN. Maybe you just didn't attach the documents that they wanted, right? It could be a lot of different things, but those details matter. We're past the point in the process where you can just maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you could have just started appealing, and then in the process of appealing, you'd get some better info, you'd get some answers, and then you'd figure it out on the 4th one. Unfortunately, they don't have time for the 4th one anymore. They're punishing you when they see you making these mistakes, whether or not you're new, whether or not it's justified. I mean, they're not giving you a lot of info in their responses, right? They know it, I know it, you know it. The messaging in performance notifications is vague. It's on purpose. They are holding the cards. They can see the info that they consider important and relevant. You can't necessarily see that. The burden is on you to figure it out in the appeals process. But again, figure it out after your 1st or 2nd appeal, not after the 6th or 7th or 10th. I mentioned future intentions in here because I want to make sure people aren't putting phrases like, we will do this, we will do that. If you haven't already started doing it as an action item or a measurable step, it doesn't belong in the appeal anywhere. And don't allude to things that you're thinking of doing or that you're going to do soon. If it hasn't happened yet, you probably shouldn't be appealing yet, number 1. Number 2, it doesn't belong in the appeal. If they start seeing those things, again, it takes them back to the first, square one, which is, I don't have to spend time on this. They're not even ready to appeal yet. They're appealing because their ASIN's down and they're losing money, or they're appealing because they're confused, or they're appealing because they're desperate. Whatever it is, you're not actually ready to do it. So, there's a start of some potential measurable action items here and some steps that could be definitive, that could be worthwhile, but it's a generic promise, or it's a generic, it's a kernel of an idea where it seems like you're on the right track, but you haven't really fleshed out what the A, B, C, D is of a corrective item. A corrective action item. Whether it's scrutinizing your detail pages, And some people just, what's an example? In an effort to optimize their listing, they completely forget about compliance for a bit and start pumping in some keywords or making some, let's say it's consumables, making some unsubstantiated health claims, putting a bunch of stuff on a detail page or hiring somebody to put stuff on their detail page that never belonged there in the first place, that got it flagged immediately. If they can see that you're already, updating your flat files, you're already getting in touch with catalog teams, you've already made the appropriate changes, if they can see that on their end, then yeah, they know you have an appeal that's probably much more credible, something that they can accept. They're not just looking to deny every appeal as soon as it comes in. Do some investigators, seller performance team members, completely fail to read the appeal and just move on? Yes, of course. There's a certain percentage that will fail no matter what. But don't assume that good appeal info is going to automatically be rejected just because it's a computer, it's a bot, there's no person reading it. I mean, of course, they're picking a pre-written general message out of a drop-down menu when they respond to you, but it is a person who's looking at the appeal. So don't assume that you're just cranking out a ChatGPT plan of action and your AI is going to meet in the middle with their AI and solve the problem. How is this so far? Am I going too fast? Are we good?
If you feel like your POA is pretty solid, yeah.
What's that?
Slow it down for Ramon a little bit.
I can slow it down for anybody.
If you feel like your POA is pretty solid and you get an automatic deny, would you submit again, considering what you just mentioned?
I would never resubmit the same thing. I'm going to talk about escalations where I'm only up to mistake number 3, and that's mistake number 5, but I'm going to get to that. Do you mean submitting the same thing?
Right.
It's funny because some account health reps tell you to submit the same, like they look at it. I don't know how often you've talked to account health when appeals get rejected. Sometimes they'll come back and say everything looks like it's here. They don't go all the way to say like you shouldn't have been rejected, but they'll kind of say the same thing. And then they'll tell you to resubmit it. I never tell people to do that. If you have an account health rep who says they're going to submit it on your behalf because it's all there, but they don't really do that much anymore. If they just tell you to send the same thing again, it's probably because, number one, maybe they do agree with you that there's nothing missing, but number 2, they're being kind of lazy and they're forgetting that you're probably going to get rejected again if you send the same thing again, right?
Okay.
So do you have an example?
No.
Did you?
No, I just wondered.
I mean, your odds aren't great if you resubmit. I won't say that it never works, but that's probably like a single-digit percentage odds. And again, like 2 or 3 years ago, you could kind of appeal a few times and get a little closer to the target every time and so forth. And maybe even just 4 appeals over the course of 7 days wouldn't cost you that much money. Now, they're doing this stuff so quickly, it's obvious that there's no real auditing or quality assurance on Amazon's side. Managers aren't staying late every day to look and, audit the performance of these investigations and the decisions being made. And a lot of times there are denied appeals where there is nothing annotated. I mean, that never would have flown in my day. If I was denying people all day and I didn't document why, I wouldn't have been there very long, right? They weren't able to scale this stuff. Everything grew exponentially. People were hired globally at a ridiculous scale. They never figured out how to audit quality assurance and sweep up after their own people. Some of these teams have high turnover, right? It's not the most glorious job in the world to be reading appeals and looking at ASIN takedowns all day. And Amazon even haven't they made public statements about kind of like, well, this isn't necessarily a forever job. Some people are only going to work with us for a few years and then move on to something else. That's not really, there's not much precedent for that in the history of American business, right? You were supposed to want to work places for years and years and years. So it's like they know they have the turnover. They know they have a job to do that isn't really getting done with auditing, investigation, performance. And unfortunately, it just means that that burden falls more on you to make sure that you're maximizing your odds with each submission.
So do you think they're doing that, some of the appeals like automatically? Because lately, I mean, we've been, you know my cases, but
right.
in the beginning we've been submitting and they were just rejected right away. It was so quick, it looks like
It just
a bot.
it just means they didn't read it. Yeah, it's a person deciding not to read something. Yeah. I mean, there would be, if, and Amazon endures like these different bad press stories and mini scandals pretty well, but there would be hell to pay if it came out that thousands of appeals are being just auto-rejected with the push of a button. And there's too many people touching and working on these accounts. I mean, if they were being auto-rejected, then that would mean somebody selling 1 million a year and somebody selling 30 million a year would be both getting auto-rejected in the same batch. I mean, I don't know of any other way to scale that. Their engineers, I don't think, are sophisticated to the point where they're going to be like, well, let's lift out the 9-figure sellers and treat them really nicely and take all the 6-figure sellers and then auto-reject them. I mean, yeah, it just seems, I mean, the messaging is generic. That's why it feels like it's a person acting like a robot. It's a person acting like a machine. It's a pre-written message. So that's why it feels that way. But it's not like, you know, yeah.
Chris, and in the case that they request invoices for the whole year and the file ends up being bigger than 10 gigs because that's the max that you can send, what will you do?
They're asking you for a whole year of invoices, yeah. And you're only able to submit how many?
I think it's the total of all the files, 10 gigs.
Yeah. And this is something I'm going to get into in a second. A lot of times you're not even appealing through Seller Central, you're emailing from the primary email address. So would it be something that would be too big to attach to an email as well? I mean,
Yeah,
otherwise you have to, I mean, you have to do it in pieces. There's no other way to, yeah, yeah. I mean, is it thousands and thousands and thousands of invoices? Yeah. This goes back to the days where they started asking for 180, like, do you remember when they were doing just a half year's worth of invoices? I was one of the people, I was like against that. So because of the volume of information, because I knew nobody was going to take the time to look through all those invoices anyway, so why ask for them? But someone in management came up with that concept. Yeah, I mean, you would just have to do multiple submissions. It just means there's more talking past each other. It does drag the process out. Yeah, but that's where some people started emailing in appeals versus, you know, if you hit the limit on Seller Central. So, did they tell you why they wanted so many invoices, or
Originally
did you
it
know
was-
why they were asking for the invoices in the first place?
Originally it was one of the ASINs because I guess some people complained that the product is not authentic. So they want to know that all my inventory for
Right.
the last year has been purchased from authorized dealers.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you hit the wall with how much you could attach, did you call account health and say, what do you guys want me to do? Just for their guidance. I can't submit what you're asking for. What do you want me to do? What did they say?
Actually, what they did after I didn't got approved like that, they blocked the whole brand for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what, I think that's what they do. Is if you got like some inauthentic complaint of the product from the customer, if you don't appeal it correctly, they block the whole brand. That's what they.
But not because you failed to submit enough invoices, right?
Right, because you didn't appeal it correct. It could be.
Yeah.
The invoice.
That's something that can be fixed
Right.
on an escalation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and most of the
As
time,
you know.
Lately, I mean, anything we do through the Amazon portal is it's just not working. You have to do the escalation.
Yeah.
For some reason.
That's why you're my case study today.
Right.
It's coming, it's coming. I should probably get through a couple more of these. This is, when I say waiting too long to get help or asking novices for help, this is something that, I guess it sounds self-serving for me to an extent because I'm tired of reading some of these appeals that never should have been submitted in the first place. But it's discouraging to me that there's a lot of amateurs out there giving amateur advice to sellers who are in dire straits or bad situations. And I know that's never going to go away, but it seems to be multiplying and proliferating. Some of it I get, some of it I'm not sure why. But those people will always be out there. I mean, if it's free advice, and if you don't have any resources to get professional advice, okay, well, I guess I understand that to an extent. But in this day and age, there are so many free resources out there about appeals. And I know you can get lost in the background noise of all the podcasts and all the articles, and a lot of the articles are just there for SEO, and it's, some service trying to promote themselves. But that's up to you to read between those lines, right? It's the same thing as dealing with Amazon. If you're dealing with like hiring people, you have to fact check what Amazon tells you. You have to fact check what consultants or services or lawyers or whatever tell you too, because a lot of them are going to tell you what you want to hear, right? Amazon employees will tell you what you want to hear too, just to kind of like get you off the phone. I don't know how many people here have SAS Core account managers. Most of our clients have account managers. I sit in on those calls, depending on how long they've been around Amazon and what they know and what they don't know. It can vary, but sometimes they're just looking for solutions too, and they're just telling you what you want to hear so that they can buy themselves more time to figure out how they can help you, right? Same thing when you're talking to like consultants, or if you're not even dealing with hiring people. And some people contact me or contact us who have hired like 2 or 3 different consultants. It's like at that point, you're just kind of moving chairs around on the Titanic, right? What's the point? Like you weren't really figuring out who to hire in the first place, and you're just kind of grasping at straws and guessing. At that point, it's probably too late to bring me on anyway. But decide early in the process if you're going to handle it yourself. Maybe not after the first appeal, okay, everyone wants to try once, or after the second one, but if you're stuck, don't wait till the second or third time to decide that you're stuck. If you're stuck early, acknowledge that you're stuck and do some vetting, do some due diligence, ask some real questions. Don't just look at online reviews, which of course can be padded. Don't listen to sales pitches. Some of this is just, don't wait too long. Like if you're doing it yourself and you've submitted 7, 8, 9 appeals, you've kind of already decided to do it yourself. Don't expect to be rescued at that point. If you do try to bring somebody in after you've done 6, 7, 8 appeals, then maybe you can get rescued, but you're not necessarily counting on it at that point. You're already grasping at straws. Listen for a strategy, right? Not a sales pitch. And again, this is if you've decided that you're kind of done with doing it yourself at that point. There's a reason that isn't as self-serving why I'm so passionate about this. A lot of very useful appeals channels have been completely botched and ruined by people who just heard about an email address or heard about a person who works at Amazon or heard about an email queue or whatever. There used to be lots of good email queues that people could submit appeals through using the primary email on their account. Seller Central didn't work. Copy and paste denials over and over. Gave up on that. It looked like you were never going to get any kind of better response. Those email queues have been deprecated because people are sending junk there, because people were selling the information online about the fact that you could email an appeal there, or just sharing that email queue with all their friends, right? Not just email queues, people at Amazon, executives that get escalations, senior managers at Amazon. At this point, a lot of people know who these people are, like S-Team executives, for a variety of reasons. Some of them were named in the federal antitrust lawsuit. Some of them were just posting on LinkedIn. Some of them were interviewed by media, national media. Some of them have testified in front of the Small Business Administration in Washington or in front of Congress. There's lots of reasons people know their names, but somebody out there finds their email address and starts blasting it out to all their friends. Or I know there are all these mastermind groups where you have to like give information or give a seller hack in order to be in the group, and this is what people are kind of trading like baseball cards. This has created chaos, and this has soiled a bunch of opportunities to get legitimate appeals through legitimate channels. So those channels may still work, but you need to make sure that you're not just spamming. I called it inexperienced consultants worsening your situation. Is that cut off? No, it's not. With multiple spam style appeals. If you're a Monty Python fan, we started calling this Spam-A-Lot, right? spamming everyone. One appeal, never modifying it, depending on your audience. You might be writing to somebody who's totally uninvolved with the appeals process, but you're sending them the same exact thing you sent to Jeff, right? The Jeff at Amazon email gets you to executive seller relations, but you sent the same exact thing you sent to executive seller relations to some executive you found out about, or some account manager you heard about that some other friend of yours has, just because you happen to find a random email address. You're not doing yourself any favors. In a sense, you're kind of hurting the entire seller community by doing that, but you're also discouraging Amazon and people who work at Amazon from spending time on legit appeals that they could have read, that they could have accepted, and not just from somebody else that you never meet. I mean, your future appeals could be harmed by what you send in today. And unfortunately, there are template mills, there are generic content appeals, there are gimmicks, there are hacks. I've been to conferences where I hear some of these things. I see articles, I see LinkedIn posts with lots of crazy advice. I won't make this just a long roster of complaints coming from me. All I'll say is, when you're going to email these people, especially if it's senior management or anyone middle level management or higher, customize it with factual information, make it concise, make it easy to read. Now they're getting tons and tons and tons of these. So they're really gonna have to skim it 10 times more than they would have had to last year, or the year before. Bulleted lists, dates of where you appealed, examples of generic denials you got. Maybe even mention, we spoke to this person in account health. Every time you call account health, make sure you're noting who you're talking to, time of day maybe, how long you talked to them, what they told you, whether you were able to verify it with another account health rep, right? Salient details, facts, things that will be meaningful to them, not just complaints about, you guys keep sending me the same copy and paste denial. Whatever executive that is, I can guarantee you they know that you're getting generic denials that are copy and paste in nature. You're not gonna get any, sympathy or headway out of complaining about that. They already know that. So don't tell them stuff they already know. Tell them how much revenue you're losing because of how long it's taken them to reply, or how there's no evidence that it's been reviewed properly. Try to document and prove that it hasn't been reviewed properly, because I can guarantee you, you have a better chance of winning them over early in your appeal, early in that one pager, if they agree, yeah, this wasn't handled right. Your odds of having them take it seriously and handle it seriously and handle the problem themselves, or delegating it to, some of these executives have 24 direct reports or 36 managers that review these things for them. So yeah, of course they don't read these all personally necessarily. They delegate it to somebody who reports to them. But the odds that it gets delegated to the right person instead of being dumped back into the queues are so much higher if you're not just writing one thing and looking for a different place to send it. That's the number one mistake I see in substandard, subpar consultants or appeals services out there, is that they don't have a real strategy. They're just like, I'm gonna give you somebody new to send it to every day, and I'm not gonna have you change it all that much. Or I'm just gonna change a couple of sentences at the top. Hey, we appealed this a bunch of times. You guys aren't reading it. Give us another chance. Basic stuff. That's lazy, and it's not smart. It's bad strategy, and it's not helping your chances, right? Yeah, how am I doing on time? Am I? Yeah.
We still have 35 minutes.
Okay.
Some questions, there's 2 questions on the screen,
Okay.
or do you want to hold them?
I can do, I'm already on my 5th mistake, and then I'm doing the case study, so I'm like most of the way through. So are the questions are the last slide, or?
No, the questions are on,
Or, yeah, let's.
one of them having, both look like they have to do with POAs.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now's a good time, actually.
Okay, so I received an email denying me the right to list the product for resale / wholesale,
Mm.
offering to appeal. They're offering them to appeal by replying to the email. Yet once I replied, I got an automatic undeliverable bounce back.
So not within Seller Central and email?
Yeah, so they got an email on Seller Central.
Right.
Letting them know that a product that they're listing for resale, they're not gonna be able to sell it, but that they can appeal this decision by responding to the email. When they respond, they get an automatic undeliverable.
hopefully that only happened once and not a bunch of times, but do they still have an appeal button that they can use instead of hitting the reply?
The person will respond to that.
There is a way of emailing elsewhere, not just hitting reply. You can still email appeals from your primary and get that solved, though. That's fixable.
The other one by Phil says, my POA has been rejected 3 times, so I gave up trying 7 months ago. Is it too late to try again now? Is my account permanently suspended because of my long wait? Strategy to get around this, please.
Depends on why they're suspended, which, is it something they've been suspended for multiple times before? The 3 POAs part, not necessarily the end of the world, but find out why they're getting rejected by calling account health. When you call account health, and I should have spent more time on this earlier slide, but make sure you're not getting any sort of generic suggestions. One reason I say don't talk to reps in India is because a lot of times they're just reading from a script. That's general advice, general guidelines, general suggestions. You don't want anything general from them. You don't want any opinions. Sometimes they keep you on hold and then they go back and forth and they start giving all these suggestions which are based on their opinions, based on their experience. You don't care about any of that. You care about, I need my denial notes or rejection reasons. And then they might take you through this dance of, well, I can't read to you from your account annotations, that's private info, blah, blah, blah. That's a ploy. You know, and you're not actually asking for them to read to you from your account annotations. You cannot revise an appeal, and this answers your question as well. Phil's question, I think it was, Phil. You can't keep appealing and revising anything unless you know why you've been rejected. That's just logical. And they should understand that too. And they try to take you through this song and dance of like, well, I am going to help you. If you start saying it doesn't help me appeal the next time unless I know why I was rejected. Well, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to look at it. I'm going to give you my take on it. You don't want that. That's what that's what they've been trained to do, but it's a diversion, right? How often occasionally I hear from people who are like, you know what? They gave me some general ideas and my appeal wasn't that great, but it helped me conjure up some new ideas and I rewrote it and I did get accepted. I do hear that sometimes, but that's not what your call to account health is for. Your call is, I need to know why I was rejected so I can revise it based on the denial reasons. Now, sometimes, like I said earlier, they will maybe not admit this, but they'll basically tell you that there's nothing there. I mean, you don't have to badger them if there's absolutely nothing documented. Of course, they can't give you any information. But that's a great basis for an escalation. If you can kind of squeeze out the fact that you were denied for no reason, that there's no notes there at all, or like I said earlier, if it just says invalid POA or unacceptable appeal, I mean, there's so many permutations of that. Great basis for an escalation.
So back to Olga's question, she responded that she does not have the appeal button anymore.
Emailing from the primary, yeah. To don't just hit reply. She doesn't have the appeal button anymore. Did she call account health to find out why there's no appeal button, or is it because of the nature?
No, this is just.
Like, is she signed out of her account? I don't know.
She'll respond. This
Yeah.
is the one that said received an email denying the right to list the product for resale.
Right.
But that's saying that they could appeal that decision.
Yeah.
By replying to the email.
That's when you get into emailing queues and things like that, but I can,
Okay.
I can answer her. This gets back to your question. Yeah, sorry.
So how can we get an operator in the US instead of India? I mean,
Oh, yeah, I meant to say that earlier. You can't guarantee it. Call later in the day. Number one rule of thumb, don't call in the morning. Like whether you're East Coast, West Coast, whatever. I'm speaking mostly of US based. Obviously, it's a little bit harder overseas. There's little tricks that you probably heard about that people, will call and say, I speak Spanish, can I get somebody in Costa Rica? And then they send you to Costa Rica, and then you're like, oh, I guess my Spanish isn't so good after all. Can you get me to somebody in the US? Like, that's what I've got Europeans doing who are getting people in India. The objective is avoid India reps. I would never say that all India reps are new or terrible or not, but the majority don't help. And I only say that from doing it myself. So I never talk to any account health reps. I'm not talking about support, because seller support, again, I'm not even going to spend time talking about that team today. But account health reps can be useful for this. And you may get a rep in the US, like by calling late afternoon, who doesn't know anything either, or they're brand new, and they give you the kind of new guy answer. But number one, if you figure that out early in the call, don't waste your time on it. Your time is better spent with somebody else. But you're probably calling multiple times to fact check what you're told anyway. And number two, there are enough US account health reps that can give you the gist of why you're rejected. They're never going to give you the once in a blue moon, maybe they'll tell you, oh, I see why you're rejected. It's this. You can't count on that. They can give you the gist of it. Anyone who says, I'm not allowed to tell you that, or that's private, or that's proprietary, all that garbage, they're just taking a break from what they should be doing, and they're not being helpful in ways that could be helpful yet.
Well, why is that? Wouldn't it be useful for everyone to know the exact reasons when they fix it? Well, why they...
The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and no one's assessing efficiency within the company of how these teams don't interact well with each other. So like any seller what didn't Andy Jassy just put out a statement like, sellers love us, look at all these surveys or whatever he said. It's like, no, Amazon's never going to communicate well with sellers until they communicate well with each other. And Amazon teams can't internally communicate with each other, whether it's compliance with seller performance, catalog, we see evidence of that constantly throughout every day that we work on this stuff. They don't have the motivation to hit the stop button and just do a deep dive on what they're doing. They don't really have the time, they don't really have the motivation, they don't have the incentive to do it. They know, believe me, if you get the right Amazonians in one room and talk to them, whether it's account managers or other people that we deal with, they know how bad the communication is. They know how ridiculous it is that your top selling ASIN will be cut down overnight, and you might not even get a performance notification. Has anyone here just not gotten a message when something terrible has happened? Not so much account suspensions. Usually you can get some kind of messaging. But I've got, 7, 8, 9-figure brands that are calling in just to find out what the hell happened to me because a notification didn't go through. Seller Central was built 16 years ago, 15 years ago. It's never been completely replaced. It's been patched, right? So it's like the technology, the hardware, the software, the tools, it's all kind of antiquated and not running great, but the inter-team communication is, as they got bigger, as they scaled up, that was never addressed. Like, if we don't make decisions today, 2012, 2015, whatever, we're going to be dealing with terrible communication down the road. No one said that. No one took the time. They might have believed it, but there were no resources put into it.
You think that will improve at some point?
So far, the reason I'm talking about all this stuff today is because the burden is mostly on sellers to run their own tight ship, to communicate as best as they can, because if you're communicating badly and they communicate badly, you're just going to keep talking past each other. You're maximizing the odds of success by making sure that you're communicating great, even if they're not communicating well, because then you can use that as a basis for escalation, which is kind of what I'm talking about here. Even the best appeals get rejected. I've written appeals for people that were some of the best stuff I've ever done that got rejected. It can happen anywhere, anyone, anytime. Usually it means, yes, the person on the other, it was mishandled, transferred to the wrong place, they interpreted it some wrong way, they botched it, whatever. That can happen. That's going to happen a certain percentage of appeals anytime. But you can use that to your advantage. If you do an escalation, first of all, let's back up to escalation. The word has lost a lot of its meaning. Back when I started consulting 9.5 years ago, the word meant what I meant it. When I used it, I meant it as we used it at Amazon. Escalations went to executive seller relations. People wrote to Jeff. In those days, which is a long time ago, I acknowledge, in those days, people weren't writing to Jeff for every little thing. People weren't swapping and sharing all these emails of executives around and sending all sorts of crazy stuff that had nothing to do with selling or nothing to do with reinstatements or nothing to do with whatever. Nowadays, just make sure you're not escalating something way too soon with content in your appeal that is not consistent with language that would go into an escalation. Some people just write a POA. Maybe they asked you for a POA, and that's fine. Some people will just take a copy of their POA, not add much of anything other than maybe a couple sentences about, hey, you guys keep rejecting me and won't tell me why, and they'll send that to Jeff. Or they'll send it to Andy Jassy, or they'll send it to some other executive email, just hoping and praying that they'll get a different result than what they sent in before. That's not a strategy. That's a template mill. And again, I know there's lots of whatever pseudo seller, consultant, lawyers, blah, blah, people out there saying, we know how to escalate it, you should escalate it. Sometimes they're just posting this stuff like on LinkedIn just to use the word escalation to make it look like they understand what it means, I guess. I'm not sure. You guys can kind of maybe tell me. The word is being overused, and it got overused to the point where account health reps who would have submitted it internally on your behalf don't even do it anymore. I don't know if anyone in this room or anyone listening has heard of this. Account health reps used to resubmit stuff on your behalf. I don't know if you've ever done that. We've had you do that a couple times.
Yeah.
That used to be a thing. And in certain cases, they would do it. All those channels got jammed. Everyone was saying escalate, escalate, escalate. They were calling in around the clock. The word was being abused, perverted, misused, whatever. And so now that's not even a thing. So another example of how sellers, through ignorance, hurt other sellers, but also hurt themselves, hurt their own appeals chances. So, I mean, I get the anxiety. I get how you get desperate. I get all of that stuff. But panicking and hasty decisions and desperation aren't going to pay the bills and aren't going to solve the problem. So just take a deep breath, take a step back. Escalations mean you're getting a higher level review. You're at least attempting to get a higher level review by somebody who, at least in theory, works on a team or works for somebody who has not seen your prior appeals, but you're customizing and adjusting the language in your appeal for that audience, for that person. Hopefully you're not writing to higher level executives at Amazon without doing some research, looking up who they are, maybe Googling their name, trying to figure out if they've been quoted in national media, so you have a sense of what they do. Looking at their LinkedIn, what are they posting? Maybe they're not adding you on LinkedIn, but you can at least follow them on LinkedIn to see what they're all about. You're not just grabbing a random email address and saying, oh, this is somebody important. I'm going to write to somebody important today. If you do it smartly, you're way ahead of most of the people who write to these men and women who work at Amazon who are upper echelons of the company. Most people aren't doing their homework. They're just spamming these people. So at least you'll stick out among your peers. That's the good news. The bad news is you could be lost in the background noise with your email into them because there are so many people consistently spamming them. So hopefully that'll improve because I don't know if I'm one of the few or one of the many consultants out there complaining that this type of thing is happening because it just, derails everybody. Again, if they look and they see that your appeals have been handled poorly, nothing's been annotated, nothing's been documented, that indicates that one of their staff, one of their investigators has done a poor job reviewing your case, looking at your appeal, they will take your escalation more seriously, right? But make sure you're actually escalating it with facts, with dates. Talk about how much money you've lost. Talk about how many days it's been. Talk about how many appeals you've submitted. And if you've been to other escalation points, other management, Jeff, executive seller relations, whoever it was, you went through your account manager, you went through a different team, a compliance team, brand registry, whoever it was, document that you did try to go through proper protocols, through established channels, and it didn't work. The reason you're bugging them today is because you went where you're supposed to go, and Amazon dropped the ball, and Amazon didn't do what they were supposed to do. Will it fall on deaf ears sometimes to say that? Yes. Will it always? No. Because trust me, those people have seen other escalations in the past, had meetings about it, talked to their teams about their internal pain points. They know that this is happening. They're not just going to immediately disbelieve you. They may not have time to read a long appeal that maybe you shouldn't have sent if it didn't have the right info. But escalations are possible. They do work. For a lot of people, it's the only way to resolve stuff. So that's why I'm going to segue, unless you want me to pause for any other questions, but, and I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but you are my case study
fine.
for today. What this is
This
the
is
list.
family, so it's
Yes,
fine.
yes.
You can go into all 20 accounts.
I don't mention brand names and ASINs in these slides, but now that I have your permission, the listing was removed due to authenticity concerns. I mean, also, we're talking about yours because we've seen it so many times with other people, right? So it applies to probably people in this room and elsewhere. Buying directly from the brand. There are people we work with all the time who buy directly from authorized distributors, sometimes even authorized distributors who are listed on the brand's website, and they're having Amazon reject their invoice. First of all, you might not even know, and Amazon won't necessarily justify why they're even asking you for invoices. There could be a buyer complaint. There might not. It might just be a particular ASIN that they've put on a list that they've had complaints about lately, not from your seller account in particular.
Yeah, that's one of the questions
Yeah.
that I want to ask, because sometimes it pops out that there is an inauthentic complaint from the customer, but when you go to the voice of customer, there's nothing.
There's nothing there.
Right,
Yes.
so
Right.
that's probably that's the reason that somebody else from other account that might have complained. That could
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I
And
thought it's always towards your account.
I mean, you have
Supposed to be
you have to check that first. But some ASINs are just like, I was talking to somebody the other day who sells Nike, and there are some other brands. Some ASINs are just high voltage ASINs. Nike, the Pokemon stuff, I mean, I could, go on, but it's just being flagged because Amazon, for their own reasons, whatever they might be, want to see your invoice. It doesn't have to be because of buyer complaints, yeah.
So I'm someone that has like multiple accounts that I'm managing.
Yeah.
So where something like that has happened, where a SKU's been flagged, I'm assuming, amongst other sellers, and they go down on all accounts.
Mhm.
I've seen it where I provide the invoicing and maybe 2 accounts get approved, and then the 3rd and the 4th are getting rejected, and I'm providing the same information. How would you go about then tweaking or adjusting the ones that were being rejected?
I mean, some people just keep resubmitting, and they do eventually accept them all. But did you call account health to say, like, it's the same thing, why is this one getting
We do the
rejected?
automated messages, we don't have enough information.
Not in a phone call, though.
No.
Yeah. Try to drill down into, I mean, the messages are never gonna get better. It's always gonna be, I don't even have copies of the messages in my slides anymore because they all say the same thing. You haven't supplied us with enough information. I mean, try with account health figuring out if somebody it's not necessarily like, what do you hate about my invoice this time versus last week? Try to figure out if they can see something that indicates the investigation was completely botched, right? Because you can come back with an appeal that says, by the way, I talked to your account health rep, Marty, who said that there were no annotations as to why this invoice was rejected. Here it is again. Will it be acceptable this time? Because you've accepted them on this date, this date, this date. That's what some people do, yeah. Yeah.
Chris, technical question when it comes to, I have a manufacturer that bottles water for me. So on the label itself, is it manufactured for me, or manufactured by me? I'm getting a little bit of static from Amazon saying I need to be the manufacturer, and I'm not the manufacturer of the water. So I know that's brand.
You don't have to be the manufacturer, but they want info on your manufacturer's relationship to the brand, which is you.
Right.
So,
Okay. Now, let me ask you another question, unrelated, but let's say invoices, as everybody's talking here about wholesaling.
yeah.
What qualifies as an invoice? Is it an invoice from Nike, or is it an invoice from the distributor of Nike?
That's why they keep asking for supplier. They're trying to get supply chain information, documentation back to the brand. So, and we could, put in here like not verified for invoices. Lots of suppliers are being rejected as non-verifiable, and invoices are being pushed back, even if they were accepted in the past. I know it makes no sense, but they're obsessed with this notion of we can't verify your supplier. The invoice, it might be a simple fix, like there's just one piece of info missing from the invoice. You go back to your supplier and say, I need you to update an invoice. Yes, some people get accused of fabricating or editing invoices when they do that, but that's the legit way of doing it, is going to your supplier and say, you don't have a link to your website on the invoice. can you put it on there for all future invoices, and then I'm gonna send it back to Amazon. Sometimes it is just a link to the supplier's website isn't on the invoice. It could be that simple. Most people at this point have like product description, quantity, you know, info on the SKU, address for your supplier, basic stuff. Definitely don't source from anyone that doesn't have a website. These people are taking a quick look at the invoice and doing a quick search. They don't necessarily call suppliers anymore. This is just for the case study info. They make mistakes with verifying suppliers all the time. So we've got lots of people, we just say, prove that you're buying from an authorized distributor. And then as long as they don't ask for an LOA, letter of authorization, on top of that, you should be okay. That should be accepted. If they're still not verifying it, that's a good basis for an escalation. But know where your supplier is getting their stuff, for sure. And if they won't tell you, don't buy any product from them that goes to Amazon at this point.
With the brand.
Or just work, I mean, if you're buying directly from brands, that solves the problem. If you're buying directly from an authorized distributor of the brand, and you can go on the brand's website and they're there, they should be okay with like giving you a letter saying they're an authorized distributor. Once you start muddying the water and getting farther and farther from that, I mean, that's why a lot of these liquidators are, I don't know, they're just gone, right? No one's buying from them anymore. Or arbitrage has become 10 times more difficult because you're not proving that you're buying from an authorized distributor, you're proving that you're buying, you know, from maybe another online seller who may or may not have a relationship to an authorized distributor or to the brand. So those screws are tightening. I mean, that's deliberate for sure. So this is just a summary of the case study I was going to walk us through really quick in terms of what was asked for, what we provided, the brand was gated. We had everything, right? Up front. And when you called account health, did you get any info on why it was rejected, just not verified, right?
Exactly.
Did they ever give you anything other than couldn't verify your supplier?
No.
Yeah.
Genetic answers.
Right. And were they US or India or both or?
Both.
Both,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
okay. So like an occasion where,
And in some cases, I couldn't even go through, like calling. I had to
Right.
go through the chat because
Right.
I don't know what's going on with the phone number. Sometimes they just reject the call.
Right.
directly.
and in some cases, people are fully compliant with transparency,
Right.
right? And it's like, you know, there might just be, okay, the transparency codes weren't uploaded on the site or something simple like that. That should be quick and easy to rectify. But they don't come back, first of all, they don't recognize, oh, you're buying from an authorized distributor, or you're buying directly from the brand. Oh, you already have a letter of authorization, so this is just kind of a technical thing. This is something we can quickly fix. They take you into the process, they take everyone else through. We can't verify your supplier. We want your supplier's invoice. We want a letter from your supplier that proves that they're authorized to sell these items to you to resell them on Amazon. There's all this bad communication and nonsense going on that you have to kind of cut through, because those are the details you use to escalate it. When you're just in a loop, I mean, forget it. Don't stay in that loop. If they think you're going to stay in the loop, they'll keep you there forever. You have to show to them, first of
That's
all,
why I just
jump in.
I just do one appeal, one submission myself with the papers that I have, and then if it doesn't work, I just go to Chris.
Right.
That's it. I don't do more than that. It's because I understand it's all like automatic or I'm just and having everything. I mean, in this case, I had letter authorization, invoice.
Right.
I have rights for transparency label. I mean, everything, and it still got rejected. So, yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't have needed additional help with it.
Right.
I mentioned escalating to, is it cut off? Dharmesh or Doug Harrington is S-Team executive. I mean, there's different people, right? But these executives almost become email queues for appeals themselves, personally, because all of this is broken down, because no one's really paying attention, I mean, within Amazon, paying attention to how they can improve it. Can they review appeals better? I mean, they're trying to implement like AI strategies to review things better, but that's going in the wrong direction, right? I mean, it'd be great if you could use, you know, it's like AI used in any context. It's great if it works. It's great if you can do it the right way. If it's going to result in, lesser quality appeals reviews or things being routed improperly to the wrong queue, the wrong team, the wrong person, whatever, then of course people are emailing from their primary email into S-team executives. On paper, that sounds ridiculous, right? There's only, 2 or 3 dozen S-team executives in the entire company. Like, why are they getting emails that they have to kick down to one of their direct reports? And why are they taking a quick look at these things and delegating them to a, mid-level manager, whatever it might be, depending on the situation? You probably didn't need it for this, where an executive with 2 to 3 dozen people reporting to them, which isn't that many, really. I mean, when you consider the thousands of emails going into some of these guys. It doesn't need to happen in situations like this, but it does. And you would think for their own selfish reasons, they would be like, oh, we got to stop this somehow. The only way they stop things is they'll start sending that message like you've appealed to the wrong channel. They try to cut off the ability to appeal. So they're not solving the problem at the source, right? That's where it becomes up to you to be creative with how you appeal and how you get their attention. I mean, some people just go straight to Twitter and they start name dropping, like, I wrote to this executive, that one. I got the same canned generic response I got from Seller Performance. What's going on? There are different ways, or Instagram. I mean, some people are just using other means of getting Amazon's attention, but high-level strategy to get to high-level people is still the way that you get ASINs reinstated faster, and accounts that are struggling to get reinstated, getting those reinstated. So.
What's your opinion on the Twitter strategy? I know a lot of people that use that.
I mean, Twitter's hit or miss. It's a good way to draw attention to something that's being handled poorly, but it's not necessarily a solution in and of itself, because sometimes they just come back with, what's your case ID? Oh, you got to go back to seller support and open a new case. Like, that doesn't really help. But depends on how you tweet. Tweets are the same as appeals. It depends on what you write. What you write does matter. If you write generic content in a tweet or an appeal, garbage in, garbage out. They're going to send you something back that's just the same kind of opaque messaging you always get. If you do it in a certain way, which indicates, one good escalation tip is when you round it out and make sure it's not like bottom of the page, but when you're getting to the end of escalating it, make sure you mention where you're going next if you don't get satisfaction at this level. Don't give a laundry list of, we're going to go to these 18 people, but indicate that you understand the escalation process, you understand who's in charge of this stuff. You also have, to your satisfaction at least, proven that it hasn't been handled right so far, and you're fully justified in complaining to the upper echelons of the company that the teams that you went to already didn't do the job, didn't handle it properly, didn't communicate to you, and you're going to keep going with it because it motivates them to do something today if they think you're going to keep coming back. It's not just persistence. You have to kind of pair persistence with brains.
What is that hierarchy? I'm sorry, I don't know. I wouldn't know where that hierarchy is to threaten that I'm going to the next level.
Senior management, S-team executives. Think of it, the short answer is think of it as climbing a ladder. The lowest rung on the ladder is seller performance, compliance teams, what have you, product quality teams. But if they're just doing generic copy and paste, you're calling account health, you're not getting any real answers on why things are being rejected. It's just logical. Like, how can you revise an appeal if you can't even find out? A lot of times they just answer, well, you didn't give us enough details. Great, what details are you missing? Oh, I can't tell you that. That's a secret. That's like the one thing you need is the one thing they're hiding behind their back, right? That's ridiculous. You have a legit beef going to somebody and saying, I've appealed this. I'm not just sending you a template. I've sent you custom, relevant. I've been through voice of the customer. We pulled, let's just say it's condition complaints or authenticity, whatever, materially different item. We pulled items out of FBA, at our own cost. We inspected them. We checked with our manufacturer. We made sure there was no bad batch. We verified detail page content matches the product, whatever it was. You're showing them that you've done your homework. You did everything you could have possibly feasibly done, and they're sending you something back that says you haven't sent us enough information or you haven't sent us enough details. Okay, well, I came back and gave you more details after talking to account health reps based on what they said were the details I was missing, and I got rejected again. So now you, sir or madam, what's your answer for that? I mean, that's a legit escalation, right?
But I'm not really, I don't know, I feel like.
Oh, you- like the- the who?
That I'd still be talking to the same person who's going, I don't care, still don't have enough information, so I'm wondering. what
It's
that-
not the
that
same-
Buzzword, is that, going to a C-suite person, I don't know. what-
It's not so much buzzwords, it's you're customizing it to your audience. You're not going to the same person over and over. You're never doing that. I mean, in terms of who these people are, a lot of that's public now. That's the good, 3 years ago, no one knew who any of these people were, right? Like I mentioned, 3, 4, some of them were mentioned right in the antitrust law, not that you want to read hundreds of pages of that, but some of them are like public figures now. They're posting on LinkedIn, they write blogs for Amazon, they go to Washington and appear in front of the Small Business Administration. And it's not just one person, it's several, right? So they go to conferences, Amazon Accelerate have some of them, or they, yeah.
So is that the standard procedure when going through an appeal case and going back and forth? Always going to be a new rep? You're never in the same conversation with one rep continuously? Always going to go to someone else?
If you mean calling account health? Sometimes you can call and say, I talked to Marty last time, he gave me specific, and then you can try to get a call back from the same person. But generally speaking, you get different people. You have to kind of agitate for that.
But that's not the case for appeals, right? It's going to say.
Those are emails from your primary, yeah.
So it's
I'm talking about you're off of Seller Central at that point. You're not even, if you're just getting the same copy and paste over and over, and it's not on you, like if you're sending the same thing over and over, of course, they're going to answer you with the same copy and paste over and over. But if you've gotten to the point where you gave them everything you could possibly feasibly give them, they're still rejecting it, and there's no info on why they're rejecting it, then there probably is no reason they're rejecting it, except that you've been rejected a bunch of times. They popped it open, whoever it was in Seller Performance looked at it, saw that you've been denied 7 times, and they were just thinking, why do I need to spend time on this? Why would I reinstate them? It looks like it's the same appeal, whatever. You're in a circle at that point. There's no way to get it done without breaking out of it. They know that too, right? So this is just kind of, we did the appeal through Seller Central the first time, got the expected result, generic reply, but the escalation email is what made the difference. Now, it doesn't always happen on the second shot, but it does eventually get.
And after we did the escalation, they
Yeah.
actually sent the email to verify the invoice, sending the email to the brand.
Yeah.
After the escalation. They never done that through just regular appeal.
Right, and check with your supplier, check with the brand, like, did you hear from somebody at Amazon? By email, by phone, they don't do the phone ones so much anymore. And sometimes they'll just do an online search, like a Google search, and try to verify your supplier that way. But they also just sometimes just don't do their steps or make mistakes or, yeah.
So I had a similar scenario too as well where a brand that I was sending for months, I then became gated on the brand.
Mhm.
I just wanted to share with the group a tactic that I did, and I would like your input as well to see if you're aware of that and if you've heard about that. To where they were saying that my supplier invoices were unverifiable.
But why? Why are they unverifiable?
No, so what I did was I went on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
I bought a product of that brand that Amazon sells and ships from. So it has to say sold by Amazon,
Mhm.
shipped from Amazon, and it has to be a minimum of 10 units.
Yeah.
I then used that invoice and I got approved.
Interesting. At this point, I think there's a lot of chaos in the system and it's haphazard. Some people show us invoices like, will this get approved? And I look at it, I'm like, no way in hell. And I won't hear from them for like a week. And I'll be, hey, how'd it go? What happened? Oh yeah, we sent it in, it got approved. And it's like, really? It looks like something scribbled on a napkin. Like, how did you get that approved?
I thought it was
Some of it's just like, they don't even look, you know?
I'm thinking it's because they're Amazon themselves. They're like, oh, this came from us. Okay, now you're good to go.
Right.
You know.
But I've heard from just as many people that didn't work for. So,
Yeah, I heard also those invoices are no good.
yeah.
So it's, like he's saying, sometimes it's just luck, you know? But sometimes you have all the papers and it's not,
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, what other insights did you get from?
After they contact the brand replied to them, they still didn't approve. They had to
Yeah.
send another escalation
Yeah.
showing that Amazon contact the brand through this email, and then they approve the brand.
Right. You have to
Yes.
connect the dots for them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be like insulting about it. You don't have to be angry about it.
Yeah,
But-
easy to say.
But no, I'm saying you can, no, I mean, enjoy picking apart their mistakes. Like you can
Right.
still get that same emotional gratification from pointing out their flaws and failures, but without doing it in a way that will be too long didn't read, or too angry didn't read, or just like WTF, you know? Because then you're defeating the purpose. You're discouraging them. They will eventually get it right. I know it's crazy frustrating that it takes them, 3 times to get it right, 4 times to get it right, but they will get it right if once they understand that you're going to keep coming back and that you know how to escalate it and you're not just, making stuff up or blowing smoke. Carlos, are you coming to the conference?
Plan on it. So
You're
I can
planning
get
on it.
clearance from wifey.
Right. So May 1st, and any questions, I mean, I'll answer case study questions, of course, but I just thought I'd leave this up there for the QR code. Any questions on the conference? We've been a proud sponsor here for a year-ish? So we're happy to, offer discount codes, of course. And a lot of speakers that you will know of. Jungle Scout, by the way, is sponsoring our AI prize, which is crazy Amazon AI tripping up listings, craziest story of AI. I call it AI surprise. So anyway, thanks for sponsoring that, by the way. Yeah, so Bradley Sutton of Helium is there. I mean, you can go to Seller Velocity. I meant to put the URL, sorry, on this page, but sellervelocityconference.com. Emma Shermer-Tamir of Marketing by Emma. Leah McHugh of my team is going to be there. Leah was here last year. She's speaking about brand registry troubleshooting, GS1/UPC code issues. She does listing compliance, policy, product and safety compliance issues. A lot of the consulting she does for e-commerce, Chris, there's no one actually out there doing it. So she was here last time we were here. She's one of our speakers. Joe Kovacs of Brand Guard helps people brands manage their supply chain so that they can prevent counterfeits without just, a lot of brand owners go to Amazon like, hey, I think this is counterfeit, and they start reporting everybody for counterfeit without tracking their supply chain or having any proof even. Data Dive representatives, Brandon Young's team is going to be there. So, yeah, 2-day event in New York. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Any questions on anything else that we talked about today?
I got several questions on the screen.
Okay, yeah.
So T she's trying to list products, and she has an account with the brand, but when she tries to list the product, Amazon is saying that her account does not qualify to sell that brand, not even to get ungated in the category. I'd never seen that before.
So it's a brand approval, not a category approval.
Right, but she has the information from the brand, they're not asking her for any of it, they're just telling her that her account does not qualify.
There are times that they're just not taking additional applications for certain brands. So sometimes that's just waiting. But she should do some more research into whether it's calling account health. I don't know if she has an account manager or not, maybe not. But there are ways of finding out why they're not requesting information. Otherwise, she can start sending it by email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phil wants to know, how do I contact Amazon account health? Phone number or from within my account?
Call me now button.
Call me now, but
Some people don't have it show up, and that's like more of a technical thing, but maybe see if he has a call me now button. And I know these things are tedious, by the way. I'm not saying these things as though it's not annoying, time-consuming, frustrating to deal, but there are calls to account health that me and my teams do where we do get that useful kernel of information, and it does influence the next appeal. Otherwise, none of us would use these things, right? It's not, account health isn't like it might sometimes feel like seller support, but it's not quite like calling support and just getting no info.
Is that part of the services that you provide? You call account help for a brand?
I mean, depending on the situation, sometimes, I mean, they need the account owner, brand owner to be on the call.
So yeah,
So-
it's three-way.
You can do like a three-way call, yeah. But sometimes it's just like calling up and being like, you know, you don't necessarily have to be expert professional handler. What are the reasons why, are there rejection reasons? I teach people to just ask for denial notes or rejection reasons. And if they play this game with you like, oh, I can't tell you that, well, how am I supposed to appeal? If they start taking you in the, well, I'm going to give you some advice. No. I need factual information on why something's being rejected so that I can, I'm paraphrasing for you, so that I can understand if it's worth revising an appeal, whether the rejection was legitimate or not, and if I need to escalate it now versus down the road. Those are three legitimate questions and points to make. And so if anyone's pushing back on that or giving you headaches on that, be like, you're not giving me anything else to work with here. You're just parroting some party line that you were taught to tell me, there's a nice way of saying it and a not so nice way. And some of them just don't know their stuff. Some of them just aren't trained that well and don't understand how appeals work themselves.
Most of the time, I would say.
No, but sometimes you can almost educate them a little bit.
Yes,
On not to make them do it, but just on what else is out there and what else exists. And they will understand after 2 or 3 or 4 sentences that you're about to do something else. And sometimes you can kind of thinly veiled suggestion, they'll understand that you're about to mention in your next appeal that you had a call with account health. Like, make sure the first couple sentences you do on account health, ask them what their name is, right? So you're keeping track of who's giving you what advice. They love to tell you all of it's recorded, blah, 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 whatever. No one's going to listen to it probably. But you know their name, and you can drop that into an appeal. We do this all the time, especially when it's just complete, bogus, wrong information. Yeah, sorry.
So, the last two are, I think they didn't catch the conclusion of 2 points you made. One of
Okay.
them-
Maybe I didn't conclude them.
One of them is, what did you say is the best time to call? You mentioned morning.
Late afternoon,
Late afternoon.
which is not a guarantee, but most people I talk to who complain like, I get India every time, I say, do you call in the morning? And they say yes. I would say 9 out of 10 people I talk to tell me that. Sometimes they're just jammed up and you can't call in no matter what time of day, but that just means it's, the luck of the draw, it's a bad time.
And how to avoid the Indian assistant? We usually do call/email at nighttime. Noticed often get Indian reps answers.
You mean like little hacks and tricks? You can try saying things like, I'm having trouble understanding you, or the connection's bad. Sometimes you call them like it's like staticky, that's a good enough reason to say like, look, I keep calling, I keep getting, I need somebody in the US. It's very rare that there's just no one, if you're calling it during like US business hours, again, this is 10 times worse for like Europeans and people elsewhere in the world. There are very few times in a 24-hour day where, in the 8-hour American business day, where it's just India, 0 US reps. Those are thin slices of time. If you're that unlucky, you're just hanging up and calling back in a couple hours. If it's like chronic, that, just getting, I do hear that sometimes. I'm just getting India every time, doesn't matter what time of day. You can try some of these, like what I mentioned, like some people were trying to get through Costa Rica, like I speak better Spanish than English. Then you get to Costa Rica, like, well, my Spanish maybe isn't so good. Maybe I need to go back to English. But don't send me back to India. Send me to somebody in the United States.
How about the Philippines? So they don't take those calls?
In my experience, the only consistently reliable, because the risk isn't just that they're useless or not informative. The risk is that they make stuff up and they tell you the totally wrong thing. So, I've seen the results. Like, people will say, well, account health said this, so I did this. And then I called this person and they said this. And they're just believing it all and basing all these appeals on it, and I'll take one look and I'll be like, I don't know what to tell you. They told you the total wrong thing. They either made it up or they don't know. You know, which sucks, because I wish you could like at least know that you're getting a real answer for all the phone calls. All I can say is US reps, you have the best odds. US reps sometimes make stuff up. You have the best odds of getting a real answer. And the more you do it and the more you call in, because you can't call my former teams. You're distant from them, right? And you can't call some of the other teams you could benefit from talking to. You can call catalog if it's a catalog issue. As part of the solution, you can call account health and you can call support. I would never tell anyone to call support for anything other than like a technical problem or like account compromise, password reset, basic stuff that you can use support for. For appeals related stuff, account health is all you've got really. And within them, the only consistent, accurate, reliable info comes from US reps. So, I mean, if they sound like they're reading from a script, they could be anywhere in the world and they're reading from a script, and you can tell. And you will get that. And that just means that they're not participating. Yeah, sir.
Chris, I have seen that for us as a consumers, it's getting a little harder to do the returns. So I'm thinking, for example, I purchased something, it was worth like $100. I didn't want to have it. When I wanted to return it, I said, no, everything is fine.
Right.
Me, I don't want it.
Yeah.
So they asked me, now I have to drop it off like half an hour away from my house or pay, I don't know, less than $10 for UPS to come to pick it up. I had to pay for it. I'm not driving. So I'm wondering if that is also increasing the customers making fake assumptions or fake claims. Do you feel that it's actually happening, or I just my
Yeah, I mean,
imagination?
there's probably spikes in fraud that they're trying to prevent. I mean, not to totally change the subject, but one of the reasons they're busting everyone on verified suppliers is retail crime, right? Stolen items showing up on the site is going way, way up. And there's like retail crime divisions being created within law enforcement, within Amazon. There's all sorts of bad behavior that because they haven't invested in training and infrastructure, they're losing tons of money because of it, right? Like if anyone who buys an item, if they're like, hey, I found out this is stolen, you're gonna get your money back. But it creates pain points for Amazon too. So, I mean.
Let's, there's one more question.
Yeah.
Let's wrap the stream. Chris, you're gonna stay here for a while.
Yeah.
We're all gonna network.
I mean, as long as there's alcohol coming, yeah, I'll stay for a while. Thanks. And try to see us in New York if you can. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I got a little off time, but, you know, I rallied. Hey. Yeah, no problem.
Is it something that's like a membership, like a monthly thing, or is it something that it's case by case, depending on what is?
Both. It depends on the person, yeah. Depends on if it's like reinstatement.
Like .com, where I
Yeah.
would go to, yeah.
I mean, I have a card. I think I have a few cards.
¿Vas a ir a Nueva York?